Live. Let's do this.
I tried to record the kookaburra for you all because it was laughing its head off this morning, but I wasn't quick enough. But I'll get it every morning and evening. The kookaburras go off.
I'm hopping on a ride. I'll get back to you guys.
You doing?
What up? What up? What up, Quincy? How you
What's
doing?
up? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
That's awesome. I saw you guys had a space going, so I was like, oh, I might as well hop in.
Yeah.
Um, what are
Oh,
you guys talking about?
nothing in particular.
Oh, that is my favorite thing to talk about because now it can be anything.
That's it.
Well, I'll be straight up with you. I can see XRP going to zero, and I can see like a lot of value going to XDC. That's just my
Hell
opinion.
yeah.
I'm
Hell
not even
Why do
yeah.
you
being
say?
facetious though. I'm serious.
Why do you say that?
Man, it hasn't been to $3 over 4 or 5 years. That is horrible for the chart.
Yeah, but like, is it because it hasn't gone to
My
three
alarm is
dollars, or is
off.
it because there isn't adoption? Because there could still be adoption, but not going to $3, and there can be $3 without adoption. So, which one is it that's particularly the issue?
All right, the market cap, because the market cap when it was $3 compared to now, it just don't
But
make
that's the
sense.
thing with that. What level of activity needs to make that market cap sustainable? Because wouldn't it just be better for it to go to $3 and stay at $3 rather than for it to go up and come back and go up and come back? And this isn't just an XRP question. This is sort of like an any crypto question. Like it's that activity that I think that we all want to see. Otherwise, like would it really matter if XRP went to $1 million tomorrow if the day after that it goes back to 10 cents? You know what I mean?
And that's what it's been doing so far all this time.
Well,
I mean,
that's
it
the
could be
entire
different.
crypto market. That's the entire crypto market. Like it's one of those things where it's like, let's criticize this one asset for this one thing the entire market does.
No,
All right,
but
for two
Quincy,
years, 2 years, XDC been at like 3 cent, right? XRP been down way lower, and it can't even hold stable support like that.
But when you look at it in terms of like the price at this particular point, I think you missed the things that caused the price to actually be worth anything at all. I think what you're looking at is what type of activity would cause there to be some level of like sustainable growth to cause the price to be sustainable rather than going, well, the price went up and came down, therefore it's like, look, that's all retail. That's literally like you can go blame a bunch of retail retards for that. People pumped it up as soon as they got in, just like yourself, they want to sell, and then they sell and it comes back down, and there really is no sustainability. They got rich, a bunch of people lost money, and now we're stuck in this bubble again, hoping that it happens again. I think we all want there to be sustainability. The price goes up, the price stays there because of the level of activity, and it maintains some level of sustainability to where people don't necessarily have to speculate on the price going up, down, right, whatever. There's just some level of growth that's continuous. That's what I'm trying to say, or at least that's what I want people to sort of focus on.
We had a lot of time though, Quincy, and it should be picking up some volume. It should be picking up some adoption.
Well, it's
Um,
not the time, it's the activity. That's like saying like, yo, it's been like 6 hours now and the party hasn't started. Well, if no one tweeted about it or if no one's doing anything, it doesn't really matter how much time it's been. What matters is how many people are at the party.
so what about all these banks and these central banks that they talk about? Ripple has a partnership. If Ripple has a partnership with central
Well,
banks, what that has to do with XRP?
I think that's a perfect question. That perfect question right there is the fallacy that people seem to not understand. Just because Ripple has some sort of economic activity done with their business and other business doesn't necessarily mean that activity translates directly onto XRP. Now, there could be an element where they are using XRP in that activity, but just to think, oh, Ripple has a partnership with this bank automatically assumes that they're using XRP. It could be something as simple as, hey, we have a relationship and we're able to format data for you or something. There are a zillion different services that can be provided that aren't explicitly crypto XRP related. And that's the thing that I think people get so hung up on. They're like, I hear this, I hear this, I hear this. Therefore, maybe they don't, but the assumption that they are simply because they're Ripple and simply because they have a partnership is a fallacy.
You making me
yeah.
love
So
it. Coach had his hand up. Oh, I'm sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
go no go, Coach. But yeah, I'll go. I'll jump in after you, Coach. It's just on that point. Go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm about to speak on. So, man, I love being able to engage with smart people. So, Quincy, I agree with you. only to an extent, right? I agree that there shouldn't be this direct correlation to like perceived or expected price action connected to every single movement or every single deal that Ripple engages in. What I will say though is I don't agree that you can overlook that entirely because they have publicly stated, unless they're
I didn't say
lying, they
you
have
can. I
public.
didn't say you can overlook it. I'm just saying you don't actually know the details of that relationship. It's not to say to overlook it, but it would be just as ignorant to just assume that there's more to it than what you've been presented with.
I agree with that. The only thing about that is that I think that it wouldn't be too far reaching in logic to correlate something that they stated publicly is that their business revolves heavily around the adoption and promotion of XRP, the token, because that's basically their primary revenue stream, right? So the more adoption, the more use case and value proposition that they are able to extend to institutions,
Well,
retail, and anybody else who would be willing to utilize this technology would further that thing, right? Because Brad Garlinghouse and David Schwartz have a very high level of incentive for XRP to continue to increase in value over time, and I do believe that is the driving force behind a lot of these deals, behind a lot of these conversations. And I don't necessarily take every single partnership or every single time Brad Garlinghouse or anybody else is in the same room with somebody that is going to mean something significant. I do think that they are playing a very, very long game. And that is inconsistent with most people's immediate desire to have like this boom economy to where they want to wake up tomorrow morning and be able to buy 10 Lambos. But I do think that this type of approach, which is like very systematic, very methodical in establishing a very firm foundation and base for the continued adoption. And so like people can actually take the time to vet the technology in the same way that I'm pretty sure that people are doing the same exact thing with XBC. It's just probably not as much attention on it because like for some reason XRP is extremely popular.
see, I understand what you're saying, but and there's a few things that you brought up here. The first thing being, and I didn't even get a chance to write all these down. What makes you think Ripple makes the majority of their money from XRP? They just run a typical business. They just may charge their clientele to be able to conduct some element of their business, like any other business. Also, just because you take a correlating idea due to something that Ripple's doing doesn't necessarily mean that's going to equate to this tangible outcome over here if you don't have all the information of what that deal is going to entail. As well as if someone else is doing something that's not Ripple on XRP and they're actually utilizing XRP, that could also be a means of which the network can essentially grow in value without you actually seeing what was done because they were using it. I think people like to focus on Ripple so much because they're easy to see. It's hard to see all the other firms out there that may potentially be using these technologies in X, Y, and the third or whatever. I only say this because I talk to a lot of businesses all the time, and most of these businesses are not advertising their technology stacks. They're simply just saying, hey, how do I use this X, Y, and Z, this cloud service, this blockchain, this whatever, and utilize these different technologies to be able to create a better business solution. When they do so, it's better for their business because whatever business they have is their ability to collect revenue. They may use these blockchain networks as a means to be able to run some portion of their application, but the fundamental use that they're focusing on is being able to create a business product. Now, the biggest thing is Ripple's business product isn't XRP. Although they may use the network, their business product is their ability to be able to interact with all these other business partners, and they may use XRP to be able to conduct all these different services. But the thing is just because one person or just because one entity may be prominent enough in terms of the use of this particular network doesn't mean they're the only one responsible for any growth on that network.
That makes a lot of sense. Just like they got like a whole business of trying to make offline payments with XRP, and that's separate from the company Ripple. So I get that correlation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't think I wasn't sure whether or not if Queen was going to interject. I just wanted to rebut that real quick. So I definitely am in line with like being very reserved about the correlative connections that people make with the actions of Ripple. The reason why I stated about their motivations behind XRP is because Brad Garlinghouse himself has stated that XRP is their number one priority, right? So for that to be their number one priority, it would only stand to reason as a business, right? That if this is your number one priority, then the moves that you make will reflect the motive behind what you feel is a priority. Now, I'm not in the same class with, Moon Boy, Moon Date people. However, I do believe that there is a very strong sense of confidence in people that take care of business in a specific way, especially if you just take like optically, right? Like, I'm not the person that places an extremely high value on aesthetics, but they do count for something, right? And so optically, they are taking care of business in a way that is consistent with traditional finance. And then also, if you look at the way that they approach deal making, it also falls in line with traditional business aspects. And I think that if you look at the people that they are talking to, the deals that they are making, they are in line because they're dealing with payment providers, they're dealing with banks, they're dealing with traditional financial institutions. And although all of those entities may not deal directly with XRP, just the slow building of adoption in any way, like the stuff that's over there in Dubai, like that was a major thing, right? Even though people would expect for that to have some type of wild swing in price action, I don't necessarily think so, because I feel that if it is going to fall in, along the same line as a traditional finance, then these things have to build over time, because an entity like Berkshire Hathaway did not explode in value overnight, right? It was a slow, methodical acquisition and merger process that allowed for them to acquire assets over time that gave them the type of valuation that we see reflected in their book and intrinsic value today. What I'm saying is that I disagree with you, Lip, and I don't know if you was trying to troll or you was just, putting a thought out there. I do not think the XRP can go to zero, because that would completely nullify all of these efforts that are very in line with a lot of the pain points for the current financial system. And that's not me saying that there's no other technologies or products out there that can address it in the same way, but I don't know if there are other companies that offer this type of product that have done that much work and foundational effort.
I don't know what put such a bad taste in my mouth about Ripple. They have an automated market that they have with whatever developers that they have to manage their supply of XRP, so it won't be negligible on them. But they don't give that to the retailer on the XRP app. So they could dump on you with that 1%. 1% of their 1% is $1 billion every month. So it does take $1 billion every month to keep the price suppressed while all their retailer buy this shit. And then why would you trust a CTO? Do you trust everything a CTO says? Because they work for a company, so it's their job to promote it.
I'm actually glad you pointed that out. I was actually going to say that that when you hear a lot of these different companies say things, a good portion has to come like what is their actual like values lie? It really lies with the company. But obviously they do have every incentive to say we have every incentive to, or we have every we want to build the most whatever, and basically give out this idea that we're here to help. And that's not saying that they're not, but at the end of the day, their bottom line is what matters. Like, so yeah, they want the XRP network to be sustainable, of course. They want people to use the network. They want people to trade on the network. But I don't think that's the same thing as like price appreciation. I just think that they want people to be able to use the network, to be able to trade with, to be able to engage with other trade partners, and then use that as a means to be able to engage with other people. That's not necessarily correlated to, well, Ripple just needs to make sure that the price of XRP is sustained. Well, no, if there's more people on XRP, it doesn't really matter what the price is. It just means they have more trade partners to engage with.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that that's negligible at all. I'm not saying that it's not a valid point. What I'm saying is that, and first let me say this: I don't take everything that executives say as the gospel. I believe that. So I had a conversation with somebody about some studying I've been doing over this last week about the 2008 financial crisis, because I believe that studying the actions of the past can be very correlative to the bubble that we're sitting on top of right now. So I don't take the word of any executive as the gospel. I'm saying that there are certain things that you can take with some measure of confidence, because it stands to reason that they are in the business of doing good business, and if they are showing that they are doing good business on two fronts, optically, and then quote unquote boots on the ground to establish some type of working relationship with entities that are in line with their proposed business practices. I'm not saying that there's no chance that could be a farce, or there's no chance that could result in nothing. I'm just saying that the probability that all of this working effort would result into a negligible effect on XRP, regardless if they have the 1% of 1% that can dilute the price right now. I'm saying that for the long term, It stands to benefit the people who are actively moving in the best interest of this asset, whether it's in the best interest as we see fit, it is in the best interest that they see fit that serves themselves first, obviously, because they're in a business that make money and that money is for themselves, but also the perpetuation of that business is also in their interest as well. And so making sure that there is a sustainable model of good business, that is what I'm speaking about.
Well, I
Right,
100%
right,
agree with
right.
you, but the sustainable model of good business is being able to provide services to third parties and allow you to have access to as many trade partners as possible. That has nothing to do with the token itself.
And price, yes. Because I get what
I
Quincy was
understand
saying.
it. And I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I'm just saying that over the long term, and this is maybe this is a little green. I'm not a trader, and I'm not a long-standing finance guy, but it would stand to reason that over time, right, those practices continued in good faith that have positive results would eventually lead to the appreciation of assets. And in this case, this asset is XRP. I'm not saying that there's a guarantee that there's going to be some 10,000 per token price. I'm just saying that over time we can experience like we can reasonably expect an appreciation of assets because that is just how business works. If you
No,
do good business, your assets will appreciate over time, and that's what I mean.
what you're describing as Ripple and other entities on the network conduct more business, they're conducting more demand for the token to conduct that business as a means as a trade medium. So yeah, as there's more business, that's not just a Ripple thing. That's anybody that uses any network in any capacity. As there's more demand for their business to be able to conduct more services, there's more demand for the native network, native token to be able to conduct those services in which people can now participate in trade. This is just something that happens regardless if it's Ripple, regardless if it's me, a random person who launches a smart contract and launches an app, a random third party application. Anybody that continuously pushes forward demand for the native cryptocurrency as a means or as an exchange medium to engage with other third party services essentially creates further demand for the asset. And as people demand those services, you create even further demand because as there's more demand for those services operate on top of these networks. These networks utilize these assets as capital. They essentially demand capital to engage with each other. They all this stuff. But like I said, at the end of the day, this is still one of those things where this is not unique to anything in terms of crypto. Every network abides by this, but this is also isn't unique to Ripple. Any business that operates on any network abides by the same logic. The more demand for their business that operates on that network, the more demand for the network, the more price appreciation, which really is just showing that there's more demand in reference to the scarcity.
Oh man, Quincy, oh man, I appreciate your intelligence so much, and I do not mean that facetiously one bit, man. You woke me up this evening, so let me
Appreciate
come back
that.
real quick. And that is my point, good brother. That's my point, right? That very rudimentary, basic level of economic and commerce lets
Oh
us be
yeah.
able to take those instances into having a reasonable level of confidence in the general appreciation of this asset because it is following according to the legendary plan. You invest, you hire good people, you produce a good product, you make deals on the product, you execute it well, and then you stand a good chance to make some money. That's the same, and you took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you, thank you. That's the same for XDC. That's the same for Ethereum. That's the same for Solana. That's the same for Walmart. And that's the
Yep.
position
Yep.
I'm coming from.
Yep. No, I'm glad. I'm glad that we can. I'm glad, and don't get me wrong. I didn't want to come off as I didn't want to come off as like standoffish, but I'm glad we can have these conversations because it's really hard to have these conversations. It's really hard,
Oh, I
mostly
love
because
it,
there's a lot.
Quincy. I love it.
There's a lot going on here. And the reason why there's a lot going on here is because these things are incredibly like it's not that they're incredibly complex. You're sort of at an axis between economics, finance, and technology. And then you're sort of talking about like these theoretical constructs where, okay, it's a neutral mean of capital. What does it mean to demand it in terms of what type of services people build, and in terms of what people, in terms of those services that are being utilized, how much are people utilizing those services to move this capital? These are all theoretical, right? But it doesn't change the fact that there's still something to be said, and there's still something to converse about. And it's too much to just sit there and go, oh, this is that. Technically, it's all theoretical, but if you can sort of dive in and start decoupling some certain parts of it to have an understanding for why, at the very least, things are the way they are. I'm glad that we were able to very much talk about like demand being the main thing, as opposed to people will like to go into well, supply and demand, supply and demand. But if people want more services, people want more products, people want more engagement. That's the demand, and as you get more of that, you get more of everything. And like you said, in reference to the scarcity, each and every one of these assets has, and it's saying people may go, oh, but some assets are inflationary. What matters is you can only use so much of the network at any given time, and you can only move so much capital at any given time. So there's a scarcity in that, regardless if there's a 1% inflation rate, 2%. Most of these freaking networks that have an inflation rate are like in single digit inflation rate percentage points. So like a lot of these things is just, hey, look, if there's more people that demand the network more than the inflation rate that is, you're gonna see an overarching price appreciation. So I think someone stated earlier that like Ripple's like selling like $1 billion or a billion XRP. Well, the real question would be, is there more demand? Is there more activity that will utilize that XRP more than the amount that they're dumping? Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you don't like that, sure. But what really should matter is what level of engagement is making the network sustainable. Because even if the market drops, that engagement stays the same, it's going to come back up again. If the market jumps and it stays the same, it's going to come back down again. So the real question is what level of activity is sustainable for a given market and how can you increase that activity?
You got me pacing around my whole apartment. So let me say this. I know exactly what you mean, and that is a part of my frustration because sometimes I cannot necessarily speak from the technical aspect, and I'm so glad that somebody with the technical experience of your background can see the economics, because that is where people tend to have the stopgap in the understanding. We have on this side, like you said, the technology. We have on this side, we have traditional finance, and we have on this side commerce, right? And by commerce, I mean like legit microeconomics, right?
Big business, it's like that microeconomic big business component for how big businesses may be able to interact with each other on a global scale. And unless you're actually in that business, it's really hard to understand. Not that it's hard to understand, it's just really nuanced. Like I said, unless you're in that business, it's like what does it mean for international trade, supply chain? Like what does that even mean to the average person? Well, it means a lot in terms of blockchain, but in terms of the average person, it's like I mean, don't get me wrong. Average people now are very much getting into these ideas, but it's not like the average person was spouting all this stuff about supply chain 10 years ago, you know?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They weren't. But that's the thing, though, right? The use of this technology is actually the very first time in the history of all of these different industries that we have this amalgamation that allows for all of them to be interconnected in the way that they actually are, because they are not actually these factions of practices. These are actually intertwined practices that just happen to be considered as different industries because it takes such specialized approach in each one of these industries. However, being able to amalgamate them in this way poses a lot of difficulty with trying to wrap our minds theoretically around what is really going on. And that is why I said that, number one, back to you, Lip, back on your head, XRP is not going to zero. It's not logical. Because now a further depreciation in value, I won't count that out at all. But that stands to reason for every single asset that exists, not just any digital asset that exists. Because I don't know, didn't Northrop Grumman just take a dip? I don't know. I don't watch the traditional stock market like that. But we can just go down the line, right? There is that element of the invisible hand moving all of commerce, just like we learned in microeconomics. I got a C. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I got a C in microeconomics, but this is what I do know, that component combined with all of these new elements that make it very hard for people to understand the value proposition, because they interconnect all of these seemingly distinct things. That's where you get the Moon Boy stuff. That's where you get the inability to see that these traditional practices do have a place here.
Yep. I'm glad that you actually pointed that out, because like all of these fields are incredibly esoteric. Like it's one of those things where like even if you were to get a degree and you were to get into that field, even by the time you're like 5 years into that field, there's still a bunch of stuff that even you in that field still have yet to learn and yet to understand and yet to be able to contextualize. And even if you are very, very specialized in the thing that you're specialized in, there's a whole world of things that interact with each other that you would still need to be familiar with. And now that world is sort of just opened up to basically anybody, because before, like I made the comparison with supply chain, before even just to even talk about supply chain, you would have to be in some element of the supply chain to even talk about. Now people are talking about technologies that can provide supply chain services without necessarily even having to go into the supply chain themselves to even understand what services being provided. They just go, oh, it'd be nice to track X, Y, and Z. And it's great and all, but like I said, these fields are incredibly esoteric. They're incredibly complex. People that are in them are also typically around people that are very specialized in other fields, so they can be familiar. Like I saw this a lot, but you see this a lot in technology. You may see like a bunch of business people, finance people, at marketers, advertisers, and then there's like the tech guy. And that's like typically how things are. But now, like, imagine you need like a tech guy that also is like a broker, that's also like a lawyer, that's also like in order just to be able to dive in enough to be able to expand on a lot of these different ideas. And it's one of those things where I think it's a two-way, it's like a two-way thing. It's a good thing that these technologies are open to anybody, so now the talent pool, now anybody of any talent can essentially now participate these rather there being these barriers. But at the same time, because anybody can do anything, just like it's simple, or in theory it's pretty simple to be able to tokenize an asset and put it on chain. Well, somebody can just tokenize some stupid picture NFT and sell it to somebody just because it was that easy. And that's the thing, it's a pro and a con. It's stupid that it's that easy to create some stupid NFT and sell it, but it's also that easy to tokenize a stock. Like, you see what I mean? At least technologically speaking, you have to talk about recognition and recognition of the asset, all that. But like in terms of the technology standpoint, you could just let's just tokenize a stock, boom, and be able to engage with that stock the same way you had that NFT. But because of that lack of understanding, we essentially see all these silly NFTs rather than a bunch of stocks.
And this is where we come to the fundamentals of general business practice. And this is why I have so much faith going forward with the fourth industrial revolution, because right now we are at the herd stage. And with every single herd, we have a culling of that herd. And we have yet to experience a true, real deal culling, because right now, all the beasts in the field grazing on good grass. But as soon as there is a higher established level of hierarchy of use case value proposition, we will slowly start to see, maybe quickly, but we will definitely see a diminishment in uselessness, or we only will have the most efficient, effective practices, or the ones that are kind of like buddy then, because that plays a part too. The good old boy club is still alive and well. So you're going to have that, which is going to be a small portion. Then you're going to have the majority, which is the legacy tokens, which is basically, Bitcoin and Ethereum if they don't get clapped. And then the high use case assets, XRP, XDC, HBAR, XLM. That's as far as I'm going to go with it. Kill me now, I don't care. But that is exactly where we will see a falling off of all of these other assets that don't have a place in what the real transformation of the financial system and the commerce marketplace is actually developing into.
Yeah, I think to summarize what you just said, I think crypto is going to have, or at the very least, everything that we've seen so far is going to have a very interesting time when we go into basically a recession. Like, the reason I say that is we've been in a growth period for the past 10 plus years or so. We haven't faced a real recession since like 2008. So there's part of me that's like, how would crypto do in an environment where the majority of spending's on the decline, where the majority of investment capital is on the decline, where markets are in a bear market? Like, and I don't mean like just like a 2, 3 year bear market like we look at crypto. I mean like a 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 year bear market. Not even bear market, but I just mean in a lack of growth period. It could be some growth, but not like the growth we have been seeing. You see what I mean? But yeah, what would happen in an environment like this if we were to go into a recession and there just wasn't as much money to be able to froth up the markets?
We have.
Hey, just while I have a pause, if everyone could tweet this space out, please.
Yes.
Really appreciate that. And also, Twitter seems to be blocking some people and not letting my regular followers into the space. Some people are having trouble. Shellfish, Cookie, Devon, they can't. It's saying the space is unavailable to them. So I don't know what that is.
Probably because BDF has them blocked.
Oh, what the hell? Them is my people.
Anyway, Quincy, love having you in the space. Thank you, Coach, Lit, co-hosts. If everyone could tweet it out, let's see if we can get some more people into the space. That'd be great.
Sure.
But hey, that's the best part. That we don't got
Man, just one more time. I legit, man. Oh my goodness. Like, I don't even need no energy drink or nothing, man. Quincy, woo! Thank you.
I'm always here for you, man. I love so it's funny too because I love engagement like this. You guys have made my freaking day. I've been sitting here at home bored as crap trying to figure out what to do. I wanted to stream, I wanted to talk, but I can't find anybody. So yeah, this makes my day. I love this. Like it's funny too because if I could, I'd spend all day just chatting with people about things. Even people, it's funny. I love talking with people that are like highly specialized, but also like talking with people that maybe you've never even heard of crypto. Because having these conversations in such a manner, and I only say that because people that are highly specialized, it's easy to talk to in that regard, and people that know nothing about crypto don't have any preconceived notions. So, but it's really nice to be able to have like these really engaging conversations on what can these technologies actually do, as opposed to oh my god, it's coming, or oh my god, this speculation, speculation, speculation. When you start getting into what things can do, speculation isn't bad. Actually, it can be really good. It's just what level of analysis are you using to speculate on? And I think right now the level of analysis is next to none. But I think if people were having like really engaging, like almost economic based conversations, I think we would actually see people actually going, wait a second. So I understand that this technology has been known to be able to do this, but I work in this particular industry and I know that we could potentially do this. Is it possible that we can use this technology to be able to solve this esoteric niche crypto or whatever problem that we may have? And so they go, actually, I've never thought of that because I don't work there. Yes, that could be used away. And you start seeing people that have nothing to do with crypto start seeing things in their own life and the things that not in their own life, but in their own careers that can be useful. And just like we said before, a lot of these technologies are incredibly esoteric, incredibly niche. It's a cross between finance, economics, technology, all of this. And being able to phrase it in such a way for people to be able to contextualize it that way and then apply it to things that are niche to them. Because like I said, I don't think there's gonna be some I don't think the idea like because people look at like a Web 2 or mobile apps or whatever and they'll go, oh, a social media app that's so easy to conceptualize, like sharing with your friends and talking online. I don't think those type of applications are the type of applications you're going to get from Web 3. This easy to digest retail based application. I think you're going to get a lot of these, and I only say this because the application is like a very niche thing. So if it's like a DeFi application, like even Dexes, how many regular people that have nothing to do with anything deal with like Dexes, exchanges, or anything? That's typically a thing that you would do in terms of like finance already. But now we have regular people engaging with that, where I mean that's not a bad thing. But the biggest thing is I think the majority of people that in that scenario, Dexes, would just be other exchanges, would just be other finance brokers, would just be other people that want to be able to use those Dexes for liquidity. Like it's not just like this app is built for everybody. It's built for a very, very specific niche thing. And people that can use that niche thing can interact with anybody on the internet to be able to interact with that, as opposed to going to a very specific exchange to be able to interact with only the participants that are at that exchange. You can now exchange with a DEX that can interact with every single person on the network that's interacting with
It's
that DEX.
the it's the evolution. It's the evolution of highly democratized traditional finance. And I
There
would
you
like to
go.
push back on only one thing you said because I'm totally in line with everything. What I have to push back on is
Let's hear
I
it.
do believe that there is a point for analyzing what we are encountering, right? Because I'll point at this, right? Since we were discussing XRP primarily as the position that we're discussing, cross-border payments is one of those primary use cases for XRP. The analytic, like the way to analyze this would be from the number one pain point for the whole reason why you would want to be able to capture this industry is because Nostro Vostro accounts, which make up most of the housed liquidity in the fucking world, and then also um, the transaction fees that come with that process of value transfer, and then also the yearly pain point amount, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere around $32 trillion a year, right? With a T. That is a very good place to analyze how we can assess reasonable expectations of effectiveness, value, and value proposition to regular people, right? Because even now, like Crypto Queens in Australia, let's say we just start a business up, right? Me and her start a business up. I'm in the Midwest in United States. Like we have to have a way to, facilitate our business. And this is a means in which we can escape a lot of the pain points in traditional finance and Nostro Vostro accounts. That is a way to analyze. And for regular people, like you said, because listen, I deal with them all the time in real life, Quincy, so I know your struggle, believe me. That is something that people can wrap their head around because people that are engaged in traditional or normal, I say normal as opposed to like digital assets, right? In normal businesses in real life or online, like they can wrap their mind around being able to side skirt a lot of the issues and pain points that come around with like international commerce or international service providing, right? Because like I've bought some stuff off Temu before, right? And Temu is in China. So there's no telling how much I can escape the pain points of value transfer for their products in order for them to hit my doorstep. You know what I'm saying? So like everything else though, you spot on, brother.
I gotta
So,
push back on you, coach. I
okay,
gotta
now let me
push
hear
back.
what you gotta say.
Let's
Let's
get
hear what
it.
you gotta say.
You know, I finish it, coach. I finish it. So when you was talking about the Nostro Vostro accounts, right? And how people want to get away from the traditional finance. And you heard me say this still before. And people want to get away from the traditional finance. So a lot of people in the XRP say, all right, I hop in XRP now because I have the power. I got away from the bank and now I got XRP. All right, first of all, your business don't have an automated market. So you're not going to manage the liquidity like how Ripple would. So you're not Ripple. Second of all, Second of all, you got to keep in mind it's the escrow that gets managed by a company. So now you're talking about a blockchain that I could what's the word when you look at something and you what is it, a report or more of the
Audit.
story. Audit, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thanks, coach. So now you have a blockchain where I can audit your account, your liquidity, your Nostra Vostra, right? And at any time I could put bots and all these AIs or whatever to watch this. So what I'm saying is you got to wait from one system to hop in another system when it's the same. So now when I talk about privacy coins, it goes to Revelation, all right? It said that I will give you a stone with your name on it and nobody would know, all right? So if I'm getting away from the old system to manage my liquidity, why would I put it in a blockchain that could get audited at any time? I'm expecting an answer from that. Please tell me XRP. Like, give me your sale pitch.
Okay, so I know exactly what you're speaking about, right? And I'm not saying that particular perspective is incorrect, right? Because I'm well, so what I'm speaking about as far as pain points is like I'm being very specific to a pain point that comes with the deterioration of value as it's being transferred. So as an example, if I wanted to send you $100 right now, and if I wanted to send Crypto Queen $100 right now, I wouldn't be sending $100, right? I would be sending my $100 USD translated to her Australian dollar. I
And
think
what are
that's
you
what
going
it's
to do
called.
this with? What are
I'm
you going to
sorry.
use to do this? Yeah. But coach, what are you going to use to
her,
transact?
her, her Australian dollar, right? Plus the fee that it would cost for it to run through however many banks, and then also the amount of time that it's going to take, and that time is not for free. So that's
Coach,
what I'm speaking
how does
about,
that
right?
have to
That
do
right
with
there, that's
XRP?
what everybody's trying to side skirt. Because after that, right? Let's say, just for an easy example, let's say that we both have Uphold, right? We do a wallet transfer. She takes the $100 worth of XRP that now has went around all of the slow ass banking communications, the snail mail approach to doing value transfer across borders. And when she off ramp, her fees and her time compared to the previous example are like night and day. And that like your perspective is 100% accurate, bro. Like we done had those discussions about like the privacy tokens versus blockchain or whatever, and like please go into that for the people who may not know that. But I'm saying like specifically for this example, that type of value proposition is the thing that can help analyze that aspect of the making more efficient value transfer as it pertains to this particular asset.
So you can only do that in XRP?
I ain't say that.
So what makes XRP so special is what I'm trying to get. You're
Whoa,
supposed to
whoa,
be
whoa,
selling.
whoa, 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 whoa! Wait, what does make XRP so special, or what makes XRP so special in that scenario? Because that's two different questions.
Yeah, I was asking them what makes it special in that scenario.
Oh, well then I'm not. I don't really know what the deal is with that. I was gonna go. I could go into what makes it special, but
That was just the token that I used in that example. I mean, obviously you could do that with Tether or some other
oh,
stuff.
then in that regard, yeah, that's a whole can of worms for how to deal with digital assets. There's a whole bundle of questions in regards to how you deal with digital assets, in terms of recognition and all that. This isn't even just like with XRP. This could be like a digital identity or whatever. But yeah, there's a whole bundle of wires in terms of what it means to recognize something and what it means to do a bunch of stuff around that recognition.
Now XRP is fast though, Coach. I would expect you to be like, well, it's fast and it's gonna do it quick. But then my rebuttal would have been it's other cryptos that are fast as well.
Yeah, and some of them maybe even be faster, right? Like I think Hedera is probably the fastest, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but that's not what makes like XRP unique though. It's not that it's fast.
Yeah, no, I'm
So
not
what
saying
makes
that. I'm just saying
XRP?
like, yeah,
Yeah, what
Can you
makes
expand
XRP
on
unique?
that, Quincy?
Yeah. What was that?
I said, can you expand on that?
Yeah, so I like this is one of those things where like I'm like beating a dead horse with this. There's two things that make XRP unique from any other technology. I guess unless you want to say like ZAO or something since it's like a fork or whatever. But what makes XRP unique is two things. Two things. Two. Only two. A lot of the other things are there's a lot of overlap. And don't get me wrong, there's some things where it's not proof of stake or proof of work, but that's not what makes it special. That's what makes it maybe unique, but not what's special. The two things that make it special is one, the entire network is a DEX. What does that mean? It means anybody from their individual wallet can list an asset for sale into the DEX. You don't have to go to a DEX. You don't have to go to third. The entire network is a DEX. In that DEX is a liquidity routing algorithm that allows you to maximize liquidity between any asset that you or maximize the max. It automatically routes the asset to maximize liquidity. So the whole premise of this is no liquidity pools. There's an algorithm that keeps you so any other exchange, any other DEX, any other everything has liquidity pools. XRP does not. It has an algorithm that maximizes liquidity by being able to route and liquidate the asset based on what's available on the network. Those are the two things that make XRP amazing. Now you can get into the speed, you can get into it's not proof of work, proof of stake, you can get into all that too. But those two things, the fact that the entire network's a DEX and there's an algorithm that maximizes liquidity on that DEX, is the two biggest things. And when people talk about cross-border remittances, currency, no Shovosho, that allows for the instant liquidity of any asset like it's cash. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean. All right, so how would you add liquidity to your token on the XRP ledger? Would you have to burn it? You had to black
It's
hole
not
that account?
it's not like what do you mean? Like that's like it seems like you're just trying to create scarcity by artificially destroying the token. That's not creating liquidity.
Yeah.
Really creating liquidity is having more people on the network and having more assets to trade with. That's really it. The network itself is a DEX, and the network has the routing out, so you don't really need to do much to maximize liquidity as long as there's more people to engage with and more assets to engage with, because the network does that itself. Now, people like talk about the AMM and all that. Yeah, that's great and all, and those are other tools on the network, but that doesn't negate the base elements of what the network can do.
Yeah, I think that was sufficient. I think that was very sufficient.
I hope so, because I know I'm gonna be saying this again in like 3 weeks. Not here, but somewhere.
No, I think David Schwartz would be proud. Like, I'm not being funny or facetious. I'm dead ass.
Oh, I really appreciate that actually.
Yeah, seriously. I never heard nobody explain it like that. Not even I haven't heard a lot of people at Ripple even explain it like that.
Well, actually, it's funny because the only reason actually that the reason that my explanation for that right now is the only reason I'm on the internet right now. I blew up for explaining that. Literally, I blew up for explaining that. I explained a bunch of other things too, but there was like a really key thing in XRP because everyone was going XRP, XRP. I just explained that, and that caused me to blow up. That's not just the only thing, but don't get me wrong. But then I find that it's 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 not something that everybody like advertises because it's a niche. Okay, how about this? You should ask yourself, Quincy, why did you find that? Why is no one else talking about that? I found that because I was working at a private equity firm that was getting interested in crypto and they wanted to use blockchain and crypto technology to be able to automate lending and they wanted to get into all of these things. And I studied up on a bunch of technologies, read up the documentation, and I found a thing. Not saying I started with Bitcoin, went to Ethereum, started all the way down. And I stopped at XRP because I found those two things. I was like, wait a second, you can potentially list assets on here and be able to liquidate them instantly without having to go through multiple liquidity pools and very easily be able to take liquid assets and liquidate them like cash. Are you kidding me? What the hell? Like, that was the thing that like blew my mind. And it's one of those things where I'm like, holy shit, that's like the main reason why I love XRP, regardless of anything. The main reason why I love it. Because you can essentially act as a financier without having to manage any liquidity pool, and you can have essentially infinite liquidity into any asset that's liquid. It's one of those things that's like, holy crap, this is one of the things that changes the world, but nobody ever talks about it. So
Yeah, Quincy, that's exactly why I stopped on XRP. I'm trying to make a wallet where you're your own custodian and I can have whatever assets in there and I could use and do whatever operations that I want in that one wallet. And I want it to be on the XRP ledger. And I want to be able to issue assets with it and I can issue it on other chains. So yeah, I love that. Yeah, me and Coach feel the same way. That's crazy. Hey, you all right, Quincy? If I never told you, man, you all right.
I appreciate that.
Listen, man. I listened to a XDC forum some months ago. It was last year, man. I think it was still warm outside actually, and it was a lot of the it was a few of the XDC Foundation people. Quincy was up there, and then it was like a basic run through of what XDC was, the projects that's going on over there, what they were looking forward to, and yeah, man, Quincy definitely stood out, man, because like with all them smart people up there, man, it's hard. It's hard for somebody to like just truly stand out, especially when everybody has a very intimate understanding and knowledge of the technology that they're talking about. So again, man, I appreciate you for coming through and man and engaging with me because iron sharpens iron. You know that.
Yeah, liquidity pools. So me trying to black hole this token that I got, I already black holed it, right? But that's not where I'm gonna get all my value. I should look at liquidity pools and look at this wallet to make these liquidity pools. That's where the value will come. Yeah.
Well, the value comes in the demand for people to interact with whatever thing they're interacting with. Asset, service, token, network. The maximum maximizing the engagement in any capacity on these networks is where the demand comes from.
I want a multi-coin wallet on the XRP ledger, and I want to be able to borrow against whatever the hell I want in my wallet, and I want
So
to have
so
margin buttons and everything.
you're describing a few things. You're describing a few things. So you're describing tokenization. You're describing bridges, like being able to move to different networks. You're describing escrow in terms of being able to do. Now there are certain things XRP can do, like escrow, like being able to interact with the DEX directly, all of that. But bridges, I'm pretty sure that you may have to go through like a third party bridge, like Flare or something, or like Impel or something. In terms of so there's a service component enabled there, and that's like a smart contract thing. So if you want to create a federated sidechain and then run that service on that sidechain, and then be able to pass assets in and out of that sidechain to be able to monetize that service, that's one way you do it. You can have a service running on a smart contract on a separate network, and then use a bridge to be able to access that service. There's like the reason I say this
Yeah.
is these networks are general technologies that are used to build things. That's like saying, oh, I'm going to build an app using Microsoft. It's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, but there's a bunch of other things you're gonna need to go build your app. Like, it's not like Microsoft just does everything and you don't need anything ever. Like, maybe you use Microsoft as an operating system or something, and you build some other tools on top of it, and you build whatever. But the reason I say that is, these technologies are like they're like base level like protocols really. And these base level protocols can do so many things, but you build on top of the protocols that allow you to do the services that people are typically used to interacting with. One example I like to always give when talking about crypto blockchain or whatever, and how people relate to it is like how people look at Linux in a sense. And the reason I say that is, let's say we were like in 1990, like 1999, and I was saying Linux is going to be the future. The entire future of the internet is going to be running on Linux operating system. It's going to be the biggest thing. A lot of people may take that and go, that means we're all going to be running Linux desktops. Microsoft gone. Apple gone. We're running Linux desktops. No one's running anything anymore. And then you go, wait a second. You can essentially use Linux to run a server with a website on it. Okay, that's great. Now that we've gotten out of just seeing everyone hosting a desktop, you've talked about the website. But then there's also an element of where I see people go, therefore, Linux is only built for building websites. It's like, wait. You could build like robots and you could build like machinery. It's just an operating system. You build on top of these tools to build the things that you're used to interacting with. And I feel like we get so hung up on the tool that we miss the things that we use to build on top of these things. And I think those are the services. Those are like when I talk about like an app and especially from a developer standpoint, it can be very vague. Like a command line interface application can be an app, but from a user standpoint, an app is like a whole website, a whole everything. But it can be that app can have multiple applications within it, utilized by other. The main reason I'm trying to say is these are all protocols, and what you're describing is an app. And you need to be able to bring these protocols together and build services on top of them to build an app. You see what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I think that right there, that's the real value in having these spaces like this, man. Because I feel like bringing together those concepts allows people to continue to contextualize what's really at play here, and then also you can apply them to other aspects of what we're already engaged in right now. And so, like as an example, the Zum wallet or Zaman. I don't even know how you say that anymore.
Yeah,
Zaman,
they say
Zum,
Zoom,
Zaman.
Zamin. I don't even know at this point.
But that's an example, right? It's really uh a compilation of protocols and other applications. And so like in that way, like we can see how that ability to contextualize also helps people who may not understand them as intimately as they probably would like to be able to.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. I was taking a note.
Deep in a know. We deep in Saturday. The Colts play tonight. What you working on, Quincy?
I guess the new thing is streaming now. I was doing quite a few things leading up to this, and I'm actually hoping I can take streaming and take the things I do privately and bring them more public, when I can, because there's an element of like I gotta make sure things are open for release and all that. But at the same time, I have a lot of these engagements online, so being able to hop in Twitter Spaces, Discords, potentially even do IRL streaming to where I can interact with other people online or in person, and be able to share that experience is like my next big goal right now and sort of a secondary goal on that, just to sort of make things exciting. But at the same time, I think I'm sort of onto something. I am on the hunt for like the next big thing. If you want to say on the hunt for the next Facebook is such a stupid way to put it, but sort of in that way. I think there are a lot of cool applications that get no recognition, primarily because like why would they? They're like these back end functions that do things for some service that no one's going to use except for some business people. But these services can be like huge, right? And the biggest thing is well, one there's like a lot of different there seems to be a crypto ideology around blockchain that holds a little bit of it back. Primarily is like the wallet thing. So finding different components of different applications that I see deficits in, and being able to cure those deficits, whether it's an ideological deficit, whether it's a technical deficit, or whether it's like a connection or networking deficit. I'm like, oh my god! Like I only say this because I saw these guys at a hackathon a few months ago. They basically built Visa on XDC. They had a terminal, they had a card, they swiped the card, everything, make CC payments. I'm like, oh my god, you guys can be like billionaires. Holy crap. And they're trying to like scale their app or whatever. These guys built it at a hackathon. But then part of me is like a lot of these guys don't even really have the means to be able to like collaborate or engage or network or anything. And I find myself in a position where I used to be that guy. I used to be that guy that spent all his time in the back office coding or whatever. And I spend most of my time like talking now. Actually, funny enough, if you look at my GitHub, I actually been like coding for like 3 years straight, and then like literally when I started streaming, I stopped because I figured I can do a lot more by being able to speak and by being able to collaborate and by being able to find people with interesting projects and being able to elevate those projects rather than trying to sort of like I have a few different projects that I was working on my own, but I sort of like took the idea with the application. I was building an application, realized, the service I'm trying to provide isn't necessarily the audience I'm trying to provide the service isn't necessarily the audience that I think would be able to benefit from this. So I essentially have this API that allows you to be able to interact with a lot of blockchain components without you having to be able to use blockchain yourself. And I want to be able to integrate that API into third-party applications that may be able to utilize it to be able to allow average users to interact with blockchain services without them having to hold crypto to do so. And then I'm like, yo, if I can just find that one pair where I can take my API from the application I was building and stick it into basically any app, it doesn't really matter. But the application I was building was basically like a tokenization application. It was basically like a software wallet dashboard with the means of being able to tokenize assets. Now the problem with it is tokenizing assets isn't a problem; it's the recognition of it. So I'm like playing this whole game of like, oh my god, you could technically tokenize this piece of paper, but who would be there to recognize it? So I'm like playing this like almost like social game of who do I have to talk to, blah blah blah, who do I need to get this from, who do I need to get this from. And part of me realized I'm like anybody that was already in the business would probably have some level of recognition based off the credibility of their business. So it'd be better for me to be able to take certain aspects of my technology and allow their business to be viable, utilizing blockchain like smart contracts or whatever through that. And rather than me just trying to like arbitrarily say, oh, you can tokenize this, but I need to figure out what the legal ramification and recognition to do that. Not to mention, I would have to do that in every country I launch the app in. So I'm like, no, I might as well just find someone who already has a good process, find a way for them to be able to migrate that process on chain, and then be able to use my API to be able to interact with that blockchain application without using crypto.
Yeah,
So can you tell me? This might be a dumb question, but can you tell me the like what value people would be able to find or derive from being able to interact with blockchain without necessarily holding any tokens? Because I kind of feel like having an investment in the space would be the reason why you were engaged and interested.
It's just apps. So like here's the first example. I built a social media application, like just like Twitter for blockchain. Just like Twitter for blockchain. Nothing really special about it. Comment, like, whatever, whatever, whatever. But in order for that application to scale to the size of Twitter, I would need every single user to be able to buy crypto, then send the crypto and set up a wallet, manage their wallet, manage all. Imagine millions of users having to do that. That is absolutely insane. And maybe they don't do it for my app, but maybe they do it for another app and then try to migrate their keys. You can't honestly expect for every individual user to go jumping through insane hoops just to install an application. Most people don't even like setting up another login, so they just log in with Google. Never mind set up a wallet, never mind set up all this, set up all that. It's easier just to be able to interact with the application as is, and then whatever the application does, it does it for the user. So the value proposition is really for the business, not the user, to be able to use the blockchain, because the blockchain is able to conduct business solutions where the user is just interacting with whatever application that's providing that solution. So from the user standpoint, it's fundamentally no different than any other app that they've ever touched before if they're utilizing this sort of service, except the app just happens to run on blockchain, which the benefit for that is since it's hosted on a decentralized system, the person who's hosting the application doesn't need to pay the cost to run the servers because they're decentralized. So the real value proposition comes from the fact that you can offload hosting costs by being able to run your backend logic on chain, as well as being able to interact with third-party services on chain, while simultaneously just being able to allow a basic service for your users.
Oh, that is crazy. My cousin, he actually works for a military company, and he basically codes like the different moving parts to make the things spin. So where I'm going with that, from what you were just saying, Quincy, damn, I almost lost my train of thought. But my point is, he said that server part that you said, where it cuts on cost because they don't have to keep on paying to run all these servers. So yeah,
Yep.
that's very useful.
That was, I say this, that was my job in Web 2. I was a cloud developer, I was focusing on trying to become like a DevOps engineer, primarily focusing on spinning up infrastructure, spinning up servers, spinning up networks, spinning up databases, hosting the application, hosting the network, basically hosting everything that you would host. And the biggest thing with blockchain, I'm like, oh my God, I never have to do any of that ever again. And it cost me nothing. I would build a basic website and it cost me $300 a month just to be able to host a stupid website. But I can basically host the backend logic on chain and it cost me nothing. Are you kidding me? That's insane. Like, holy cow. And not to mention, can you do that? But that application can interact with third-party applications without me having to do any additional work without them to do so? That's insane. Normally, I have to build an API. I don't need to do that. They can just interact with the smart contracts directly. Like, what the crap? There's so many different use cases in the form of a developer, but it's only in the basis of being able to build applications for the users. So yeah, from my standpoint, it saves me money, it saves me time. I'm able to interact with other third-party services. I don't have to build out an API for people to interact with it, and I can focus on my app directly. And then ideally, if I'm able to use my API, anything like it's a Web 2 API, if you want to put it that way, it runs in the cloud. The whole premise is if you can have an application that is able to scale on chain and being able to be utilized by basically anyone, and that when I say anybody, you may be going, but Quincy, aren't your users using your API? Third-party users can execute your smart contract without having to go through your app. When it's on chain, anybody can interact with it. So the big thing is your individual user base may have some sort of web tool, set of tools, API to interact with that smart contract. But any other third-party smart contract blockchain application can just interact with it directly. So you don't necessarily need to be focused on just users not using crypto. You can focus that on your users. Third-party users that are using crypto can just directly interact with that smart contract without any intervention. They can just do whatever, they just interact with it. And from a developer standpoint, I would normally have to spend a lot of time building and maintaining services for them to do that, where it basically means it's just nothing, no work. It costs me no work to run the servers, costs me no work to host the servers, costs me no work to be able to allow people to interact with my application, costs me like it's just like holy cow. Like
No, that's fascinating. I never even thought about it in that way, though. That's a lot of stuff that I didn't even take the time to even consider. I mean, mostly because I'm not a developer, but also because the infrastructure around a lot of these processes are something that's kind of like taken for granted. And so to be able to, again, make more efficient things that are like concepts that already exist is just really a beautiful thing.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. The biggest way, and this is why I like to talk to people that are new to crypto, that don't know anything about crypto or anything. What's the point? I'm like, look, this is just a new technology. It's not like people are creating new things. They're taking already established processes and they're allowing them to run more efficiently. That is basically the whole premise of this. Is they're just running a process more efficiently than the traditional system is. Now, the second question that people ask, and it's a question out of ignorance, well, how is that process more efficient? Well, unless you're the one running the process, that's like saying, how is this making your business more efficient? But you don't even know how that business even runs. So, like, you can't even measure the two in terms of being able to know how it's more efficient. You can't even tell how that traditional business runs. And that's like the gap in ignorance in crypto. Nobody in crypto, I don't mean nobody, but I mean the majority of people in crypto are not these like crazy freaking supply chain technology developer financial professionals or whatever, just regular people. So they don't have the perspective of being able to understand the inefficiencies that could be made up for by utilizing these technologies.
I think a very rudimentary example would be in the process of building an actual structure, right? So you can go the traditional way, which would be to get all the raw materials in order to make, like, you pour a foundation, you hammer up the trusses and all of this stuff, support beams and stuff. Whereas the alternative would be to bring in a ready-made structure that all that needs to happen is to have a foundation, and then for you to customize the interior and exterior to your liking because all of the foundation is already there.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's like standing on the shoulders of giants type of deal, where once some level of foundation is built, then people can keep building on that foundation. And the more solid that foundation is, the more solid will the things be built on top of it as well.
And that is where we have the accelerant future, or in our case, the accelerant present, because I feel like with such maximizing of efficiency, we have so much more time to devote to things that were previously like not necessarily neglected, but weren't able to have the level of attention as they were previously because of a lot of the infrastructure that went into, like that foundational process. And so now, in the same way, like, so as an example, like I don't have to really spend a whole lot of time making an outline of something because I have a machine model that can do the outline for me. And so now I get to spend more time on the actual contents, which produces a higher level of quality.
I love that you said that. Oh my god, I love that you said that. I love that you said that. I love that you said that. So let's move that analogy just over one more, right? Because we talk about how crazy crypto technology is and all that. There was a time in like 1995 where you needed to be like a computer science software developer programmer just to build a basic website with a menu on it, right? And maybe not. Maybe if somebody dabbled with HTML and stuff, they could probably put it together. But for the most part, if you were hired to build a website, you would be some, established developer. And then you started seeing third party services like Wix and Squarespace and other services that help you build basic websites. Now, the average person needs to build a website. They don't need to be a software developer to build that website. There are services that can allow you to manage website. Don't get me wrong, there's different levels of it. Maybe if you want to create a new social media platform, you may need to be able to either A, utilize a bunch of different third party services to come together, or maybe write your own code. But for the majority of websites, whether it's a menu, whether it's a flyer or just a landing page or just basic websites, the majority of people can go to a third party service and be able to utilize that. Right now, we don't have that for crypto at all. There are no third party. There are RPC services that are like third, but these are like developer third party services. There are not third party services that allow you to launch a smart contract, manage that smart contract, and then be able to redeem the products of that smart contract and any other tokens that may be inside of it. That is a very specialized thing. That is something that I, as a developer, actually have to jump through hoops to be able to deal with. And now, as you start seeing more progression in the space, you will start seeing services that allow people to utilize blockchain technology and services within that without actually having to be like professionals in the space to do that. So same thing with the website. The average person now that puts together a website is just a random, probably a business owner or a business whatever, rather than just like a regular person. And it may be the same sort of thing when it comes to crypto. It may be, whether it's a business person or it's a whatever. It's probably not going to be a technical, financial, or a lawyer type person, but there will be services and tools that allow them to be able to use these technologies in such a way that's advantageous for them or productive for them without them having to know all the complexity and tech behind it to be able to do that, just like the website.
Exactly, exactly. Great example. So like I think the website's called Quicks or like what's the other one? Squarespace. I think Squarespace does it too, where you get like
Yep,
the
yep.
GoDaddy and all that stuff. Like you don't have to have the technical experience, but it's only because there's a foundation of repeatable infrastructure that eliminates the need to go through that meticulous process of building from a one and a zero, right? And so in that same way, we have like other like the real estate model I gave, and they also have like these other ways that you could do similar things. Like they have 3D printing for houses and stuff, where they take a dispenser and they essentially 3D print the concrete foundation and structure of a house, right? That's like crazy efficient and also like super strong and durable. So like that type of maximizing of ability continues to allow people to focus on that next thing that they didn't have the ability to, fine tune because of time constraints. And so now it's like, how much further can we take it? Because how many more barriers can we like take from a jumble that you have to straighten out to a ready-made platform to get to that next level faster, right? And so like how far can this take us? And that's the beauty of the fourth industrial revolution, man. Because if the sky ain't never been a limit before, the sky's the limit right now, let me tell you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sorry, I was actually going to say something, but I lost my train of thought. It'll come to me in a second.
I do that all the time. But I smoke weed, Quincy, and you don't look like you smoke.
I used to back in the day.
Yeah, I think you're doing better things now. Yeah, it's an expensive habit, but I mean, life's short. Yeah, there's a time and place for everything. I'll leave it on that. All right, there's a time and place for everything.
So, Quincy, I have a question unrelated to that. It's just around the space because I'm getting so many DMs saying they can't get into the space. So, when you stream a space, because I noticed you're streaming the space, does that lock the space so people can't come in?
I don't think so because the stream I have set up is like entirely separate from the space.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
it's saying. It's
uh,
unstable, and people and like my co-hosts don't have anyone blocked, and I definitely don't. So it was just a
Right.
Nice.
yeah, uh, I don't know. Yeah, so so how the stream is set up is I'm using Streamlabs. So I don't know if there's not Streamlabs. No, it is Streamlabs. So I don't know if they may have an effect on Twitter. But they're just there's my Streamlabs account's just streaming to Twitter and YouTube at the same time now, and it seems to be separate from the space I'm in. I've hopped in spaces before like this, and never seemed to be an issue. But at the same time, I never like saw a bunch of people trying to get in or anything.
No, it's okay. I just kind of asking because I think it's either Twitter glitching out or like
That's
not
probably glitching.
people in. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the first version, I don't know if you restarted the space again, but the first time that you put it up, I wasn't able to get in there.
Yeah, I did. I did. The same lip had the same issue, but
Weird.
it sounds like a them problem, not my problem.
Yeah. Now look, we got Quincy to ourselves, man. We can talk to him, ask some questions. We don't have to
I
race
mean,
people. Ask some questions. Yeah.
I guess that's
Yeah.
true.
Hey, I've been waiting for this, Quincy.
Check your three
I mean,
dots, Crypto Queen,
I
in
should
your
just so
settings.
you guys know, I'll be doing this hopefully not quite every day, probably 5 days out of the week. I hope to be doing this most of the time. The reason I say this, you never know what you're gonna catch, so I'm kind of hoping that things sort of happen, click it, go live. Like this, by far, was probably one of the best live streams I've ever had, just from engagement wise. I've tried bringing people on and all that. That's great, but it's good being able to have people that have sort of an idea of what they want to see, and then they talk about that, as well as discuss like the nuance in the space, regardless of what your position is. You know.
Yeah. All right, Coach. I had to address Coach for this because I didn't want to address somebody else for this. Y'all better hear what I'm about to say. All right, so have y'all heard about what happened with the Titanic and the Apollo?
What do you mean? Like the Titanic, like how it sank and Apollo blew up? Like is that like?
So I see XRP being one of them, and I see XTC being the other one. Now, the Apollo was the ship that had like a lot of wear and tear on it, and he was down pretty bad on a lot of his investment. So he had an insurance policy on that. So what was said was he swapped them out, put the Apollo out, but called it the Titanic, and kept the Titanic in the brand new boat. So then when it sank,
Oh,
he was able to get the policy. Now, this is the part that's very baffling, very interesting, right? Tell me why he was supposed to be on the boat and 3 of his competitors were on the boat and they were all supposed to have a meeting, right? But JP Morgan no showed, right? So he no showed, his rivals was on the boat and it sank. So what I'm saying when we talk about court and we talk about certain companies going against each other and having lawsuits and all this and then they getting settled, I'm not gonna say certain names, but y'all know what I'm talking about. So I see Ripple being the Titanic or the Apollo, and then something else basically coming above that. I mean, y'all gotta keep in mind who put the infrastructure down for our financial system during the bailout when the dollar that we know came to be and the go back wasn't. JP Morgan, he bailed them out. So if you're in JP Morgan's way, you really think that a company is going to succeed if it's in JP Morgan's way.
well, it's
Now
one
you
of those
can
things
use
where
the token as a gas token, and that has nothing to do with price, like what we said earlier.
well, you got to
So
remember
I
too,
would like,
like JP Morgan has no control on what the rest of the world does with an open source technology.
That is a fact. That is a good fact.
ooh, so man, snatched straight from my brain, but I wanted to expand on it a little more. So I understand that logic, right? And you know me, like I don't discount any of that type of stuff. Like I literally spent most of this week deep diving into the 2008 financial crisis, which really actually started in, I want to say, the 80s, right? It was a long game, started in the 80s with deregulation around banks and stuff like that. So the nature of the financial system, the bones, right, are exactly the same. The epidermis is not. The epidermis is evolving and changing, right, in the same way that we get a new layer of skin every 7 days or just about. And the reason, and what I mean by that is the way that there was able to be this stronghold on what was going on no longer exists, right? For that one primary reason there that Quincy said is you can't stop people from using open source. Open source is some shit that was never even thought about when these deregulation policies came to play under the Reagan administration that eventually led to further deregulation under the Clinton administration. And then, the top got completely blown off the defense in the 2000s when all of this mortgage and predatory lending was happening that allowed for the real estate boom that eventually led to all the subprime lending coming crashing down with collateralized debt obligation and then also mortgage-backed securities and then those mortgage-backed security swaps. So I agree that it's not very effective to have a giant like JP Morgan as your enemy, right? It was actually the Goldman Sachs president who went to go be the damn chair of the Federal Reserve right before all this stuff popped off, and you tell me they wasn't playing a long game. So that actually happened. They gave them 100% on the dollar when Goldman Sachs needed to be quote unquote bailed out. They let the Lehman Brothers fail as basically an example because there had to be some type of sacrifice being made for the public. And then AIG, which is a security insurance company for all of these banks, and then Morgan Stanley were also helped out by the Federal Reserve, giving these very premium loans to allow like the buyout of JP Morgan over I think it was I can't remember, but JP Morgan combined with the Federal Reserve to buy out a bank, and then the Federal Reserve also helped Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. And so the reason why I'm bringing all of these things up, and I'm sorry to be so lengthy about it, is because those particular instruments only go so far now, and I believe that is why there's such panic in the traditional financial institution because a lot of these things don't have the sway as it used to have. Now, at this very moment, the thing that they could do is what they did before, right? It's even more concentrated. You have a higher concentration of financial institution and insurance companies for these financial institutions and investment banks that can produce the same amount of damage. The only thing is that this transformation is slowly seeping away that power. The effects might be similar because a lot of the people's value in these countries have the same connections to these systems. But to say that they could essentially wipe out one of these companies, especially after a victory in court in front of the whole world. I don't really think that that's necessarily the case to go that far, if that makes any sense.
Well, here's an idea. I'm gonna pose. I love that you pointed all that out. So I'm gonna try to simplify it as much as I can. And I just looked this up just to put some dates in there. Microsoft was founded in 1975. Linux was founded in 1991. Linux is an open source software, and Linux is the primary means that the majority of applications run on. If by your logic was still true, wouldn't Microsoft do everything they can with all the money they ever possibly had to make sure they monopolize the market as much as possible? And that clearly didn't happen. And there was no like concerted effort on Linux users to do that either. It was just a natural way of things where people are like, well, why would if I can utilize these services? I think that's the most powerful thing about open source. Why would I spend money for this third-party service when there's free software that can do the same thing? And that free software, if I'm going to automatically take some software and modify and utilize it, I might as well modify the free software and be able to build whatever service I can with that. And now,
Yeah.
with that being said, that's not automatically going. Therefore, all open source technology is going to win. The main thing is, it's going to win on the basis of what makes it functional, what makes it useful, right? It's not just, oh, this person has more money or this institution has more influence or whatever. It's going to win on the basis of what's more functional. Why? Because you can just download it. Why should I pay JP Morgan X amount if I can do that same service through a download? I can do that same service by executing a smart contract. I can do the same service by managing a token. Why would I go through and that's like just like freaking like hosting web services? Why would I go through and pay a license for freaking Microsoft when I can just run Linux and just create third-party services on top of Linux? And you see what I mean? And I think that's the thing and I think that's the big, most powerful thing with open source in general is the fact that no one company can outdo all of the open source community in any given field because there's always somebody out there that's going to do something that company's not willing to put resources into, and then people build on top of that as well.
All right. Well, I got to push back for you. If I'm
Let's
not
hear it.
mistaken, I thought Microsoft bought GitHub. So would that give them a monopoly over all the code?
That buying GitHub has nothing to do with Linux.
No, of course. No, I just brought it up with the Microsoft part.
But
And I
that's
was
the thing
saying
though.
that
But there's also Bitbucket. There are a bunch of other repositories. CodeCommit. There are a bunch of other repositories.
Okay.
Actually, if you really want to play this game, there are freaking open source developers that will say you should never use a repository by somebody else. You should host your own repository.
Yeah.
So there's an element of like, yeah, open source developers will say, yeah, don't use GitHub. You should use your own repository.
Yeah. So you don't have to worry about what we were just talking about. Hell yeah. I like you, Quincy. That's why I like you, man. I like you. I brought
So
up
you're
one of these
saying,
before.
you should run your own node, is what I'm hearing.
I mean, if you really want to play that game, open source people will say you should run your own email server, you should run your own node, you should run your own everything. There's no reason to use third-party
Everything.
services. Like, yeah. Why download an app on the App Store when you can just get it for free? That is literally a saying in the open source community. Why download this editing software when there's this open source version of it? Why buy this whatever because everything is open source. Like,
Aren't you on iPhone?
Yeah.
hey, I'm not an open source maxi, bro. I love iPhone, so don't get me wrong. Like,
Oh.
Oh, you
I
caught me.
got a
Quincy.
Google Pixel, so that's all I got to say about that.
although with that being said, is there an open source phone?
No, it's
Yeah, I
not.
think there
It's
is.
a popular one.
Closest is de-Googling.
I'm gonna go check.
Wait. No. It's a Linux phone. It's the Linux phone. The
Well,
lead
they're
right
Linux
there.
phones, but like, is there? Okay. Obviously, like, there's probably not an open source phone, but is there like an open source phone blueprint that was like created by I don't know, like it's kind of getting silly now.
Yeah. You're
There
right.
is.
Linux was the code. I thought Apple's core.
No, Linux is an operating
was based
system.
off that.
Linux is an operating system. I'm talking about the hardware.
Oh no. Okay, you got it. I don't know why I try to go back and forth with the developer.
Actually, no. I take that back. I think there is like I don't know if it's an open source phone. I'm pretty sure I take that back. It's not open source. I'm pretty sure somebody took some software that was made from some like Chinese phone and then they just booted it up with Linux or something and called it an open source phone or something. There's something like that. I forgot what it's called. And the whole premise is that like anybody could like use this phone or anybody could. I forgot what it's called. Let me see if I can find it.
That Pi Raspberry thingy. It was supposed to be like the Libra.
No, that's a Raspberry Pi is just like it's just a microchip that you can build stuff on.
No, not that. Oh, not that. I can't remember. Yeah, you're right on that. Nah, I can't remember the name of it.
Funny enough, where's my Raspberry Pi? I've got a few of them in here.
I thought I was the only one putting my seeds on Raspberry Pis and stuff because some of the cryptos that I dabble in, uh, they're GUI or they don't have like a wallet that you could just pick up off the Apple Store. I give you an example, like Hush, it's the Zcash fork. It literally has its own repository built into the chain because the people at that protocol just said what you just said.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, okay, with that exact thing being said, that's actually like a huge criticism. It's a huge criticism towards Ripple actually, is because majority of the updates that go towards the XRP ledger actually go through the Ripple GitHub account. And it's not because Ripple really like anybody can post and Ripple will push it through, but it's because everyone trusts Ripple. So if somebody were to push an update to the network, they could, but they don't have the same level of trust as Ripple does. So everyone just kind of pushes it through the Ripple GitHub.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so the Nothing phone and then the OnePlus.
There, I
As
think it
long
was
as
the
as
OnePlus.
well as
I think I heard
Raspberry
that.
Really?
Yeah,
Pi.
the OnePlus is the Raspberry Pi phone.
No, I'm saying along with Raspberry Pi.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, I never heard of those two. Caught my interest.
I think I've heard of OnePlus. I think that's the one I was thinking of.
Nothing
I
phone was
never.
actually the first result or top result. Nothing phone, top result.
Nothing phone.
That's real. That's crazy.
What
What's
kind of
that?
phone is that?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Oh, the
I'm like,
market.
hey, I would say I'm about to copy, but that thing 700.
Yeah, start like the Librem. That phone I was telling y'all.
Hey,
It's basically a Linux computer on a phone. They want damn nearly 1,200 for it.
hey,
And that
if
thing.
it's cool with you guys,
Oh,
if it's cool with you guys, I'm gonna hop out of the space real quick. Probably will hop back in. I'm gonna be here all day, but I see a few other spaces that people are trying to invite me onto.
yeah, no worries, of course.
No worries. Thanks,
Keep
Quincy.
it keep it going, and I'll be back. That's a fact.
Okay.
I love this space.
Appreciate you, bro.
Awesome, awesome. I'll catch you guys later.
Yep.
Yeah,
All right, so I saw that Zach. Oh, where is he? There he is. Yeah, I saw that Zach Rector had a space. So let's go crash that. So yeah, this is looking really great. This is sort of like the new meta I'm trying to capture. So it's almost like streaming on Twitter, right? I'm in a Twitter space, but I'm also streaming on Twitter that I'm in that Twitter space. And now the meta for that is so I can interact with more people on Twitter, whether it's through the spaces, whether it's through posts, whatever it may be, people that are prominent in that regard. I know YouTube has like a YouTube meta where people will watch other YouTube videos, and there's a little bit of collaboration in that regard. People getting exposure, people collaborating with others. I know Twitch does that with like games and stuff. So I'm hoping I can do the same sort of deal with Twitter or X or whatever, and then interact with other X influencers, Twitter X influencers, as well as be able to speak on crypto, the space, all that stuff as well. So yeah, this is looking pretty sweet.
Oh, hey, Bill.
Yeah, hi Zach, how are you?
Doing good. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, a bit rugged, bit too much Shiraz last night, but I'm up and about.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
Still early in the morning here.
In Australia?
Indeed.
Nice, nice. Yeah, man. What's your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, look, the whole question about damage caused by the lawsuit and perhaps the investigation before that, if you're trying to find an explanation for suppression of XRP price for 5 years, is something I think that needs to be debated. Certainly, because I'm a believer in the view that XRP price has been suppressed, and when I've expressed that on X, people have said, but how do you say who's doing it, and how do you say it's happened? And it's really hard to come to grips with that question because there's not that specific trail of evidence that you would hope to get, for example, in a lawsuit. But we get a sense of it because the suppression is not just tied to the lawsuit, in my view, it's tied to the narratives that prevail in crypto. Just like you have narratives in mainstream media, you have narratives in crypto media as well. And the narratives are very pro Bitcoin and pro Ethereum. And um, there's a continual bad narrative against XRP. The FUD's continual, and it's something I've noticed in the 3 years that I've been in following crypto, and when I came into when I first got involved in crypto, it was actually to buy Litecoin, and then I bought some XRP, and then 1 week later the lawsuit started. So pretty much my personal history of XRP and crypto has been coinciding with the lawsuit, which is why, as a lawyer, I followed the lawsuit. And
I had to make this one comment, just because I didn't make it at the time. But I saw, what is that? Noel, you super chatted $5. Really want to say thank you for that. I know that I probably should have said that earlier, but I just wanted to get that out before I forgot.
when it crashed, who would have suffered a specific loss because of the filing of the lawsuit. How was the lawsuit otherwise suppressed XRP price and caused damage? Because if you look at the charts for the entirety of the last 5 years, then it's clear that XRP's price was falling on its pair with BTC, and it was falling on its pair with Ethereum before the lawsuit commenced. And I think that's where you have to look at the narrative and say, well, the narrative for Ethereum included the Hinman speech, a commodity, and I think that's part of the suppression. It's not just a case of the lawsuit. In fact, you can question whether the lawsuit, events in the lawsuit, even the initial fall, which was significant, but XRP did recover and eventually went to almost to $2 in the last market cycle. Whether the lawsuit has anything other than short-term effects on the price, because the price shot up after the decision in mid-July, but it fell again, and then there was the decision to not pursue the matter against Garlinghouse and Larson, and that caused another spike, and that was lost within a few days or a few weeks. And you look at the price now, and I think it's about 8 cents above what it was at the time of the mid-July decision. So those positive results in the lawsuit certainly had an effect on the market, and a positive effect when the news was positive, but they were short-lived, and XRP has continued in this sort of relatively suppressed mode particularly compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum, although it has outperformed 50% of top 100 coins in the last 12 months. So the whole question about XRP price, I think, is really complex, and we should continually question the assumptions that people make. Although whenever you raise it, I find that whenever I raise XRP price issues, if there's any perception of negativity in any comment I make, it does create a sort of quite a negative reaction from the XRP community. So it's a very sensitive area, talking about the negative or any perceived negative impacts of XRP price. So that's my view on it. I think that what damage is being caused by the SEC would be really difficult to prove if you were applying court standards of evidence.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I think that you're right. You can't just say, oh, it's just a lawsuit. It's much more than that. Like you said, I think that you have to, put it all together as far as the overall narrative. You could call it an attack on XRP, or you could just simply call it, the choosing, the free pass of Ethereum and Bitcoin. But when you tie it all together, I was going to ask you, Bill, and by the way, thank you, Quincy, for coming on up, man. I'm interested to get your thoughts on everything taking place in the crypto market as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good to see you, brother. And anybody else that wants to send a request, feel free to come on up. This is an open conversation. Bill, I wanted to ask you, the thing that I find interesting, it's like we've been up against so much, and the fact that we've still been a top 10 coin amidst all of this. Amidst a lot of XRP being added to the circulating supply. Like, these are all factors that are working kind of against us, right? But yet we've still been able to, persevere so far. And I think that we got some good things coming. What's interesting to me, though, like you said, Bill, on July 13th, when we got that ruling from Judge Torres, we didn't even get to go into price discovery, really, because all of the exchanges crashed. So that's another thing that's against us, right? Is I've seen XRP back in 2020 before the lawsuit pumped up towards about $1, and Coinbase crashed, and it effectively kind of killed the XRP pump at that time. And then it was shortly thereafter that the lawsuit got dropped, and then obviously we got killed even further. So I would ask, my question, Bill, I guess, is what are your thoughts on that being another factor that's been against us? Is the exchanges can't even handle XRP volume during these moments when we have this type of excitement.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that too. And another phenomenon that people in the XRP community point to is the fact that when XRP independently increases in price, whatever the reason, there's almost immediately a fall in the Bitcoin price, which then, because Bitcoin has such an influence on the market, more than 50% of the market, a Bitcoin fall in price is going to affect any other coin that's on an upward trajectory. It might not be immediate, it might take a couple of days, but it'll eventually drag it back down. It's like dragging something back down to the mean, and that is something that happens, seems to happen quite regularly. Whenever XRP price independently increases, or there's a big green candle, then there'll be a Bitcoin fall. So people can say there's some level of manipulation on the basis that the people who control Bitcoin obviously have a big say on the Bitcoin price, but they also have a big say on the entire market because of Bitcoin's dominance in the market.
So I guess the $1 trillion question, Bill, would be, what's kind of your expectation? Do you think that we'll be allowed to go into price discovery, and let's just be conservative? Do you think we'll even hit an all-time high this coming bull run?
Yeah, I'm skeptical that we'll hit an all-time high this year. I can't say it won't happen, but because it's so difficult to understand the nature of the suppression of XRP price, it's really hard to predict how it can break from that and have true price discovery.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to let everyone know we have welcomed up Quincy. We have welcomed up Vet. We're just getting the Saturday party started. So please do us a favor and share this one out far and wide. And we're here for an open conversation. Even Bill, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say, yeah, we're for sure going to an all-time high. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
we're here for it. We're here for it.
I hold XRP. It's my main investment in crypto for a reason. So
Yeah.
I ultimately expect it. I'm just not confident it will be this year.
Yeah, 100%. We have a lot up against us, 100%. I see that Vet has his hand up, so we'll go to Vet, and then we'll welcome in Quincy. Vet, how are we doing, brother?
Hey, how you doing, Zach? Thanks for bringing me up. Yeah, I just want to give my two cents here because I was listening as well, and I think it's really important always to look how narratives are developing and what is driving price. And if I look at the overall market and other cryptocurrencies and within the ecosystem, what is going on, they have just different narratives going on, especially primarily, these couple weeks or months, especially since December. It's like these airdrops and the DeFi protocols that are blowing up on other chains. Like they get massive injections of liquidity through airdrops. People getting handed out massive amount of money that they buy back certain assets or the token itself, Solana, and all that. And this is just completely missing on the XRP ledger. Like we don't have that narrative. Like we are not writing the current narrative that the whole market is writing. Therefore, there's no reason for us to participate in the same amount, if that makes sense. So, in terms of price swings up or down, whatever. So, the amount of liquidity and amount of users and activity that is on other chains due to all these applications and people doing something is massive right now. Really, is massive, and we do lack that. The good things though is what I'm seeing for I guess the year developing is that I'm very sure we're going to catch up with this. We have really awesome features coming to the XRP Ledger, automated market maker, all that, DeFi protocols, platforms on the XRP Ledger like Orchestra Finance and so on. They are gearing up to launch also really nice DeFi platforms that people can play with, do stuff. Maybe tokens will be created, all of that stuff. It brings just attention to the XRP ledger and all of what's going on, and people get more excited. Because if you look at the overall market, like legal clarity is really nice, but is this something that beyond the initial announcement, right, is something that people value in terms of price going up or something? I don't think so. I remember when a lot of people also in the ETH community, they were holding XRP. They had no interest in all of what we are usually about with XRP and Ripple and the goal of the XRP ledger, but they just saw an speculative event coming up that can result in a high price pump, and then they're not interested in it anymore. Okay, so whatever that happens after, it's not interested more anymore, and we are past that. So all the legal stuff is done, right? Like in terms of bullish trigger, because that was anticipated. People looked forward. We had the pump. We came also down because people, I guess, sold. And I'm looking forward to 2024 primarily for those features, especially looking at the automated market maker and the XRP Ledger DEX. And I know that when we look at what Ripple has posted over Christmas and what they're excited about, it's really about the DEX. We also saw this with Swell. It's really the DEX that seems to be 2024 the star here. And I hope that this is going to generate not only attention but also liquidity and attract developers and projects to build on XRP Ledger, use the token so that we can create demand. So I was past couple weeks I was all about demand for XRP. I was posting about the EVM sidechain. I was posting about the root network because these side chains, they are gearing up to launch with a lot of projects and they need XRP. Okay, they need XRP in order to operate as their native token or gas token. So I'm seeing demand. So what I'm looking for, where's the demand coming from? Like we need demand, like real demand, because nobody's just gonna buy it for the sake of buying or all of that, right? They want to see real demand. So I'm really looking forward to those factors, the DEX, with the automated market maker and whatever people build on Ripple and so on, and the side chains that leverage XRP and basically drain XRP to these side chains because they want to leverage it. Because I think those narratives could develop very well, although that's of course not a guarantee. But that's just my 2 cents.
So basically, we need more memes on the XRP ledger, is what you're saying.
We need more memes.
God, this is crypto in 2024. We need more memes. Quincy, are you making memes or what are you cooking up over there, brother?
I was actually gonna comment a little bit on there, to what Vet actually said, minus the memes, I guess. One of the biggest things, one of the biggest things that you're gonna see that helps bring demand towards the network are the apps and services that are built on these networks, and then the user bases that utilize these apps and services, and then those services utilizing XRP to be able to move capital is one of the biggest things. Now, these services can do a bunch of different things, whatever you want, DeFi services, social media, whatever. But it's those applications that are being built. And don't get me wrong, it could be a meme as well. You could call a meme an application and call the meme base the user base. That also is a fair statement. But the main thing is having a sustainable user base with continuous growth for any given application built on any of these given networks can allow you to be able to build that growth in demand for the underlying asset to be able to run those services.
So
Completely agree.
Are you on a live right now? I've been seeing that you've been.
I am live.
I
am live.
I knew it. Okay, so everyone, watch what you say. We're on a Quincy Jones live stream, and we're gonna have lots of fun.
Say hi, mom, everybody.
I feel like listening to your channel, sometimes I have to slow it, like go to like half speed because you're just like going so quick through it, and because you're talking about complex topics for a guy like myself who's not in the tech, living and breathing it. But 100%, man. I this is what it's about. So Vet, I'm excited because I'm ready to pick your brain a little bit more on some of
Oh,
this
let's
stuff
do it.
because
Let's do it. Oh my God, you're making me
it'll be
hype.
so much fun. And then we have legal representation from Bill too, so we can make sure anything that we say is on the up and up.
All above board.
Yeah. So Vet, what was we're seeing more transactions are going through now. And my initial reaction too is all this activity is burning more XRP, and it might seem um, irrelevant now. It might seem like just a drop in the bucket, but where
Mhm.
I see this going down the road is actually, burning a significant amount of XRP, and it's just like getting that flywheel effect going. And like you said, we're doing this with you can issue assets on the XRPL. Now we can finally do NFTs, and so we can create memes. But you got the DeFi capabilities coming through the AMM and some of the XLS38D cross chain bridges that really fires up the utility and really starts burning a significant amount of XRP too. So can you talk a little bit more about what the XRP ledger has been experiencing recently? Obviously with the inscription attack and kind of beefing up the validators to be able to handle this load.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm actually
so
not. Yeah, actually, who is that? I was not familiar with that. Whoever's going to speak, go in because I want to know.
yeah, I'm going in here. So
Awesome.
around Christmas, people from other chains, I would call them like nomads or something. They go from chain to chain and do these encryptions that became really popular on Bitcoin with ordinals. And these people, go from chain to chain and do this to launch and ride the hype train of inscriptions so that they can, make a profit flipping those. And around Christmas, they appeared on XRP Ledger actually, to maybe not many people's surprise, but eventually they came and they started doing inscriptions. And those inscriptions, general, um, they look for the XRP Ledger just as payments. Okay, so people did or are still doing a lot of payments on the XRP Ledger. In drops, like really tiny amounts. They just want the transaction to be recorded on the chain. That's it. Um, and they've been doing this in masses, so hundreds of payments per ledger. Like every 3 seconds, we have like 200 or 300 transactions, and mainly payments with these inscriptions. So that's a really high amount as a comparison. Before that, we had maybe 20 transactions in a ledger. 20. So we have seen definitely 10 to 15 to 20x of traffic on XRP Ledger. Um, that brought definitely a lot of burn on XRP Ledger. Like this was something I looked at today as well in the morning. I was like looking at it and I was like, damn, we were like burning at times even 10 to 11,000 XRP per day, just for people doing these transactions. And it was just an interesting thought because a lot of people who are running infrastructure on the XRP Ledger, validators, and also among the UNL, they they triggered the conversation around increasing the fees on the XRP ledger. That's a very sensitive topic because people usually then think, oh, is the XRP ledger becoming like Ethereum? Are we not able to transact? Is this ruining the payment narrative of the XRP ledger? All that? Not at all. But we were looking at, for example, a bunch of people actually did it already, to increase the fees on the XRP ledger by 20x. So the burn would go up by 20x. It's still very very cheap because it's ridiculously cheap to transact on the XRP ledger, to the point where people said why, like there's no reason to have it so dirt cheap, like throwing basically it for nothing. We can increase it. We increase, of course, then also the burn, but that's just fair, right? That's just fair. We go with the time. Fees on XRP Ledger have been stagnant for since David Schwartz and all of them have basically launched the protocol, um, and it's time to catch up a bit. Time to catch up with the increase of adoption, and to reflect the transaction cost, the real the cost of a transaction in terms of its load on machines. So people were, asking to increase the fees. I don't know if this is going to happen. I certainly will increase the fees, probably maybe next week or something. I know that other people want to do that as well. Some people did it. And just to see, because it's like a dynamic thing, and we can just see how the ledger is changing. There are even voices for way higher fee increases, like 15,000x. It would bring a transaction cost to 1 cent, around 1 cent. That would be actually also interesting. Like I'm completely open for these fees and reserve adjustments because they are dynamic. You can change them like as you go. They're not fixed. Um, and they don't need an amendment. Okay, they don't need an amendment, and you can just experiment and see like real world data, like what is changing. Like what is changing is demand increasing? Is transactions going down because people perceive it's too high? What's going on? So this is currently the discussion resulting from these inscription loads that people are asking. Maybe this is a good conversation to have now about transaction fees and what we can do with it. And I like the conversation actually. Yeah. Did I nuke Zach?
Sorry about that. Okay. Um, I was gone for a second there. My apologies. Vet, did you lay all the secret sauce or what?
I did, yeah. Basically, I covered the transaction fees and
Yes.
the discussion around increasing it and all that.
Yes. Yeah, and here's the thing. For me, I think a lot of people are seeing that. Okay, what happened to the XRPL being able to handle a few thousand TPS? How can we ever compare against Visa, Mastercard, which are doing tens of thousands? Um, I think that we scale up through the use of the side chains, as you mentioned, and I think that it does end at the end of the day. We do have to beef up our validators, and we've had that conversation too, Vet. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's a few different things, but um, I think that we're working towards it, and it's a step in the right direction. I prefer to see these attacks happening. This basically free stress test on mainnet XRPL, and just the fact that we
Yes.
didn't collapse, we didn't pause, we didn't have any issues,
Yes.
we still kept chugging away, and that's important.
Exactly.
Gas limit. I see that we just brought you up. Welcome. Did you have any questions or comments? You're on mute, Gas.
Hey, sorry. Hello.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just listening. I'm not really in the XRP space. I'm a developer in this, like in the DeFi space, and I'm just wondering to see like what's going on the XRP ledger.
Yeah.
Like, do they have like smart contracts yet?
No. Well, okay. This is gonna be fun, isn't it? It's a very heated debate. Yeah, no, we don't. We do not. So what happened is they were in the process of bringing them to mainnet, and a decision was made to actually not bring them onto mainnet. So we had some developers that created basically a side chain of the XRP ledger for smart contracts, and that's called the Zahao ledger. And so they've got smart contract capabilities over there, and for now we do not have smart contracts on the XRPL. Another probably hindrance to our adoption and the use and utility of XRPL is obviously missing that. But it's been important for the developers to add these new features and utilities in a way that doesn't break mainnet. And so I support the developers that want to bring it on, but I also respect the fact that we have a lot of developers who are saying, let's make sure we don't break this thing, just so that we can say that we have smart contracts deployed and then we crash the network shortly thereafter. But I
Yeah.
also what's happened now is we have the EVM sidechain, and it's in testnet. It should be going live here soon. Vet, do you know when that goes live, or are we still in testnet right now? Right?
Yeah. So the EVM sidechain is already up actually.
Okay, it's running.
And all that. Yeah, but we
Great.
need to wait for the bridge, and the bridge is coming very soon with an amendment that we can vote on.
Right. So we're going to actually have the ability to settle any EVM smart contract on the XRP ledger, which I kind of like this approach because it keeps the XRPL focused on payments and throughput,
Correct.
and won't bog us down with smart contracts and everything else. But I mean, I eventually see smart contracts as kind of an inevitability. Your thoughts on that, Bet?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So we don't we this is the thing with XRP. We don't have shit, right? Besides payments, and we've still been able to maintain this level. And now this is what gets so interesting about our position today, though, is we have that legal clarity, that victory court ruling that we got last year. That's great. But now we're getting the additional utilities that are coming this year. So it'll be really interesting to see what comes on this ledger, what gets built out over the next 24, 36 months. I think that you're going to see significant retail adoption, but then big unveiling of some big partnerships I think that Ripple's been able to tie down, and some of the strategic partners and institutions that have been waiting for the case to be over and for the additional utilities to come on. So we're supposed to be getting an AMM, automated market maker, which is going to be a layer one DEX AMM, unlike all of the layer two DEXs on Ethereum. This will be on mainnet, and I think that's going to be a very, very big deal for getting more liquidity coming into the XRP ledger.
Yeah,
Quincy, oh,
the
go ahead.
whole yeah, sorry, the whole, I feel like for the XRP ledger right now, especially for 2024, is I feel like it's being put to use, and I really like that. We have seen from Ripple that they have commitment to the DEX, and they have products probably and partnerships, as you said, maybe coming, or other stuff, even amendments that we don't know yet that people are working on, to make it better experience or more advanced. I really like to see that, more usage of it, not only in form of sidechains that we talked about that leverage XRP, again, increasing demand for it, that's positive, and but also putting it just to use, right? A lot of people are always asking, hey, you know, is this using XRP? Is this using this and that? And I hope in 2024 it's becoming very clear what is using XRP or XRP Ledger and what is not, because we do have the functionalities then on chain for that, like the automated market maker you mentioned.
And the EVM sidechain to me gets so interesting. Just the ability to settle any EVM smart contract in 3 to 5 seconds using XRP at almost no cost is a massive utility.
Right.
And that's what drew me into XDC when I had you recall, Quincy, the conversation we had a couple years ago, and you said you can move any ERC20 token over to the XDC network in the time it takes to sip a cup of coffee. And at the time, I was like, well, okay, that's a massive utility right there, just because I didn't think that Ethereum 2.0 was going to save Ethereum. And that appears to be the case. I mean, even though the network sucks and it's still expensive, there's still a bunch of shit built out over there. And that's why I think, I think that Ethereum has some significant threats coming its way, XDC being one of them. And also just the fact of the EVM sidechain on the XRPL gonna take some of that action away. Your thoughts, Quincy?
Um, yeah, sorry, I was looking at my chat. Can you repeat the last thing you just said?
Quincy, are you there?
Quincy's stream.
He's
Oh
buffering his
crap.
stream right now.
No, I was
Okay.
unmuted. I was actually looking at the chat. Can you repeat what you just said?
Talking about just the utility of being able to move
Oh,
any
yes, 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 yes,
ERC20
yes.
token over to XDC, and any other updates on XDC that you got cooking over there.
So yeah, we like the technological component of like moving assets and moving technologies and the elements of being compatible. That's all great and cool and all. But the real thing that separates XDC, and you can say this XRP too, or really any other network that's trying to facilitate some level of activity that's unique. The thing that makes the XDC unique, is the activity that's trying to be facilitated is focused around global trade finance amongst a bunch of different institutions and enterprises to be able to use blockchain as a means to engage with other trade finance parties without them having to go through intermediaries. And the biggest thing with that is it's the means of those trade partners engaging on the network that bring value, not the. I mean, yeah, it's nice that you can move code from one network to another or bridge an asset over, and that's more of like a technical spec. But the real value proposition is that there are a bunch of people on the XCC network that are engaging in global trade finance, and they're using the network in such a manner to be able to facilitate that type of engagement. So people that want to go to trade finance, they might not go to like Cosmo or or Cosmos or like Ethereum, they may go to XDC because there are people that are engaging in that way. XRP, people talk about cross-border remittances and nodes from Nostro. That's the type of behavior that's unique. Now, when we talk about Ethereum, people go, "Oh, all this stuff's built on Ethereum." Well, what's the behavior? What's the behavior? It seems to be a lot of retail-based investment vehicles that are meant to be speculated on. That seems to be the majority of the Ethereum, and that's not a bad thing either. I'm not saying it's like to criticize them, but that's the activity that's being facilitated. So if more people want to engage in that activity, then they'll go to Ethereum to engage in that activity or what other types of activity. Let's say there was another network that was focusing on GameFi gaming. Well, because there are certain types of activity focused around gaming, people that want to engage in that level of activity will go to that network. Yeah, that network may have technical specs that are unique, but like 75, maybe 80% of the networks have an overlap of what the blockchain is, and then they have some components that make them moderately unique. But the main piece that makes them unique is the type of activity that's being facilitated on those different chains. We can talk about tech and all that, but the biggest thing is if you're able to engage with these people on this chain and this activity, why would you go to another chain that doesn't have that activity? You can go, oh, the TPS, oh, the this, oh, that, the that. That doesn't mean anything if my business needs to engage in this level of activity and there's no one there to engage with. So that's the biggest thing that I like to focus on. That's the biggest thing that I think that makes XDC unique, as well as a bunch of other networks too. Like I said, like whenever people bring up XRP, like yeah, they bring up like the TPS and yeah, they bring up like the nodes or whatever, but they talk about Nostro Vostro. They talk about the means of moving money. They talk about being able to like all these other things that facilitate this activity. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like when it comes to XDC, like you can talk about like Zinfin, you can talk about TradeFinex, Trade Tech, Trade Trust. There's so many trade names. But there are a bunch of organizations that try to, and that's the thing, they don't all do the same thing. Like Trade Trust focuses on tokenizing documents and tokenizing identities. Trade Tech focuses on tokenizing securities. Zinfin focuses on basically every element of their trade partners is operating on chain. So they all operate a tiny bit different, but it's in the general sphere of trade finance. And the biggest thing that makes these networks grow is that activity being saturated on a given network. As more and more people engage, just like the Metcalfe effect, I talk about this all the time, or how networks scale. So each additional node added to a network creates an exponential amount of connections in that network, and those connections is the value point. So that's like if you're trading with somebody, each additional node to the net, each additional person added to that network makes an exponential amount of people you can now engage with, and that just continuously grows as more people participate. So the biggest thing is that activity is growing that activity, and I like beat a dead horse with this trade finance, trade finance, trade finance, trade finance, trade finance. But the biggest thing is growing that and saturating that activity is the thing that is the thing that's pushing the network. And then like with that, you get people building applications and services. You get applications and services engaging with each other, trading with each other, tokenizing assets, and then those apps and services they have user bases which are using those apps and services which are engaging with each other. These are all activities. Like I don't have to say anything about the technology to describe that activity. And that's like the biggest thing with XTC, hands down, hands down. And it's funny actually. Hold on. I wish I pulled out. Let me see if I can find this. I had a card of all of the organizations on XDC and like what they do, who they work with, how they do it. And that's the big thing. But it's not sexy because like I mean like what's sexy about verifying documents so that people can be sure that they have the right piece of data for something or something. Like it's not sexy, but it's functional, right? And that functional builds applications, which essentially grow demand for the network.
And you mind, Zach, if I jump in here?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Fire
say
it.
one thing.
Yeah.
Quincy, what you're talking about is trillion-dollar problems. And I've always said the trillion-dollar problems are what turn me on. And you're speaking to the caliber of people that are choosing the XDC network. There's a different caliber of folks that are picking the XRP ledger. We love the memes that Vet is making on the XRP ledger. It's very cute. We get a laugh. It's very good. We
That's
need
all
more
fine
of
and
it.
dandy. That's just behavior. Like
Yeah,
if the
yeah.
behavior is the means, then good, congrats. That's the behavior. Like that's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't matter who's doing what. What matters is if that behavior gets saturated, then that's what the use of that network is. What that behavior is.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that when I saw XDC going after, talking about trade finance and just how wide that is, you're talking about documentation, everything else in there. But it's a market that's not just a few billion, not tens of billions. You're talking about trillion-dollar problems, trillion-dollar markets, trillion-dollar amounts of liquidity. XDC is going to get a little piece of that pie. XRP gets a little piece of that pie. Do we need to get it all? Absolutely not. But if you just get a piece of that action, you move somewhere pretty interesting, I think. Vet, what did you want to chime in with?
Yeah, I actually wanted just to ask here, Quincy, I completely agree with him, especially these businesses and apps. Like, I think we need more of that. Like, we need more of this because they're functional. They have an application, they have demand, and they have a use case right now, right? Not in 10 years, not in 20 years, but right now. So I like that. But I would like to ask Quincy about what his experience is with, I guess, developer relations, getting projects coming to build and utilize the technology for such purposes. Are you seeing difficulties? Like, what is the market that you're looking at from XDC perspective or your perspective?
Is this in terms of like what it means to be able to bring developers onto
Yeah,
XDC, or
yeah.
just
How
challenges?
easy? Yeah, challenges. How easy it is. What is like the things that you are seeing that you want to maybe improve
Yeah.
or tackle?
So there's two main demographics of developers that I end up dealing with. Either I end up dealing with basically startups that want to disrupt the system and use blockchain in some capacity, and usually they're a lot more flexible. So they're usually like pretty like tapped into the space. They usually have already built some element of their smart contract or application on probably Ethereum or somewhere else. So usually I end up dealing with them and usually telling them the benefits of XDC, all that, but also connecting them with other people on chain to be able to allow them to use whatever facets of the network they want to use. One example is there's a startup called DTG, Digital Transfer. Freaking gas limit is in it right now. Like the gas limit's in it right now. Yeah, like no, I talk with these guys all the time about their experience with operating on XDC and what it means to be able to do X, Y, and Z and what they can do and all that. And they're in a startup right now. So that's the startup element. I do also deal with a lot of businesses and institutions, and usually what they do is usually they already have a business. So usually a startup has an idea or some sort of solution, and they're in the process of fulfilling it. Where a lot of these institutions already have a business product, already have a business solution, and they want to create a easier or more efficient means of managing that. And these businesses are a little bit more experimental because they are a bit more dabbling with crypto. Like they're not jumping in head first, but they're slowly going, what can we do with this? And usually they don't give a crap about the token. They don't give a crap about volatility. They're like, how can I run this business in this way? And usually it's like, if I can run a smart contract, can I have other people interact with that smart contract? Can I tokenize these aspects of my business? Can other businesses interact with these tokens? Like one simple example was, I was talking to this one business about, it was like tokenizing leases. So like you would lease some, I think it was like a piece of machinery or something. It was a lease for something, and the whole premise was the smart contract just kept track of the lease. That was it. Smart contract keeps track of the lease and like there's like a deposit component and another thing, but it just keeps track of all those basic components. This is something that they already do, but they've realized, oh, we can use smart contracts to automate that. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into how they do that because a lot of their infrastructure is in like the cloud or traditional infrastructure, and then they're trying to figure out, well, how do we architect this solution into blockchain smart contracts? And I don't know if I was on this space or maybe on a space just before this. But then we start talking about what it means to have like API hot wallets so their user base can interact with these smart contracts, and all of this. And what does it mean for their already existing infrastructure to be able to move on to these, like I said, be able to interact with these smart contracts and these other tools. And it's just like every single one's a little bit different, but it's about forming how do you take their business solution and allow it to operate on chain. And usually they're the ones leading it. I'm usually just the one that they come to ask a zillion questions by. It's like, oh, well, how do we do this? How do you do that? What if I was gonna do this? What if I was gonna do that? What if I was gonna set up a subnet? How would I do that? What if I was gonna do this? What if I was gonna do that? And basically sort of guide them through that as well. And then yeah, it's sort of like because sometimes they may have Solidity contracts they built on other chains, so maybe they're launching it on a private network and they want help setting that up, and then maybe they're testing things out with their smart contracts, and maybe they want tips on where to go for auditing, stuff like that. So I hope that answers your questions. I feel like I went off a little bit.
That was beautiful. No, thanks.
Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, Quincy, you mentioned Metcalfe's law. So I have a question for you or for anyone else. How
Let's
can
hear it.
XRP's price be so flat for so long, given Metcalfe's law does seem to apply to blockchain networks? One would have thought that with NFT functionality added a couple of years ago, and continual adoption of ODL, Ripple's ODL products, that one would have seen some emphasis on price just as a function of Metcalfe's law.
Okay, so this is what I see that's happening. I think people will take an idea and then create an expectation from that idea, and then when reality doesn't meet their expectation, they're like, "What happened here?" There's an element where, yeah, there's Metcalfe's law, but I think most people are looking at this through the lens of more like retailers holding XRP. There's an element where like the big thing where Metcalfe's law comes into effect is with the volume. So yeah, let's say you had 1 million people come onto XRP. Well, if they've only brought on $100 onto the network, that's not really going to create. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's creating growth, but not the same growth that you would have expected with sort of that expectation. But usually, when I'm referencing Metcalfe's law, I'm talking about businesses coming on chain and each business having a service, and those services having user bases, and those services being able to interact with those services. Those users aren't doing that. The average person holding a crypto is not doing that. So you're not getting that exponential connections between all these different parties on chain. You're just getting just individual people hodling. And then people create this expectation of, well, I bought the token, where's the price? And we're not seeing that engagement. We're not seeing that saturation. We're not seeing that engagement. We're not seeing that build. We're not seeing that demand. We're just sort of seeing small, like, and I only say small because the impact of 1 million users doesn't even compare to the impact of like two VCs, like, or even one VC. Like, it's one of those things where like some of these values are so big that you may go, well, 20 million people are on this, and it's like that doesn't compete. Like, when we talk about like the Bitcoin ETF, like 5 major institutions getting into the Bitcoin ETF will move more value just in that one instance than the entire like crypto market could in like a week. And it's just like it's hard to fit these great expectations that are mostly fit in these giant macro realms. Like I said, when I talk about institutions, like when I talk about Metcalfe's law from the standpoint of institution, you start seeing the growth that the institutions may have with connections to each other. But the growth that an individual may have to each other, yeah, you can send money overseas, but what's like how much value compares to 1 million people sending $5 overseas, or like just a handful of institutions just sending like $5 million per execution? You know what I mean? Like the total amount of money that's being moved in the market by retail is absolutely a speck in comparison to the total amount of money that's out there that can be moved by institutions. And I think we create these unrealistic expectations in terms of price value because of that, because we see the cultural element of it, we don't actually see the tangible like use element of it. And like a good way I can sort of maybe phrase this is like imagine you taking imagine there was a pool, right? And I said, oh yeah, with enough people taking a cup of water and putting it into the pool, you can see the pool fill up. And I go, yeah, yeah. So once you start seeing a bunch of people put the cup of water in there, and you go, well, hey, look, man, I just saw like a whole family just put like a cup of water in the pool, and it still seems empty. And I'm like, yeah, I get that, but a family is not going to be able to take a cup of water and put it in there. Maybe someone had like a bulldozer or had like a whatever, something that could put more water in there, and that's sort of, and it's maybe not the best example I could give, but the main thing is people have this expectation that retail can move the market way more than retail ever could. And I think there's speculative elements of that, but I think most of those elements are manipulated, and people will point it out until they're on the other end of it, and then they want to say it's not. So it's one of these things where I'm like, I don't think the impact retail has on the market is anywhere near as big as people tend to think it is. And when it is, it's usually incredibly short lived, like a price spike, and then it slams back into the ground again because somebody would push a huge amount of capital in.
Yeah, it's a great explanation. Thank you.
And I was going to add too, Quincy, we haven't even opened up the floodgates of retail retirement accounts and pensions. And obviously that's what's going to be coming through the ETFs. And what I highlighted in one of my most recent videos was the fact that gold did a 5x after its ETF got approved, and silver did a 10x. So the underlying assets did significant gains after that ETF approval. I think the same thing's
You
coming
have to be a
for.
tiny bit careful. You have to be a teeny. I see what you're saying. You have to be a tiny bit careful because there's a level of activity around gold, a level of speculation around gold that caused that. So unless you're saying the same level of activity and speculation is going to happen around crypto, then maybe we will see that. But I think we need to define what that level of activity was before we can be conclusive.
Do you think it's bigger? Because I would argue it might be bigger
Well,
this
I
amount of
don't know if it's
speculation.
bigger if we can't articulate what it is first. So first, what is the activity around gold that caused that price appreciation? And then once we figure that out, we can understand whether it's bigger or smaller.
The great financial crisis, right? Because that's what took place in the 2000s, right? The ETF was approved in 2003, And then in 2011, gold and silver hit their all-time highs. The first silver ETF was approved in 2006. So we could argue that the great financial crisis was one of the catalysts that led to that run-up for the underlying assets. And we find ourselves in the middle of another economic situation. Some would argue maybe even bigger than the greater financial crisis.
That's okay. I don't disagree with everything you just said, but you also have to remember, do people have the same level of activity around gold as they do around crypto? I only say that because crypto is associated with gamblers that are just jumping in and out of assets for the sake of trying to get rich, while people typically look at gold as a safe asset. So just that alone, in terms of how people look at the asset. Now, I'll say with that being said, that means with crypto, it's going to be bigger because people are way more excited, people are way more jumpy. It will be bigger, but is that sustainable though? You see what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, gold, see, it ran up and then it did come back down, and it hasn't approached these levels since 2020. So it took another, 9-10 years for it to actually, come back up to these price points.
But
I think you're
if
right.
you take that and you apply it to crypto again, wouldn't that be like, oh shit, crypto's gonna spike and then slam to the ground and take 10 years to recover?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's coming this bull run. Is I think we run up again, and then we have another significant pullback because there is still so much speculation, right? And
Yeah. I totally. I only say this because there's a lot there, and I want to touch on what is there, but I don't know if it's. I don't know if it's because we saw this before, we're going to see it again, or because there's this level of activity that's happening over here, we're going to see that same level of activity mimicked. Now, if it happened before and it happened again, maybe we could sort of like correlate it, but I don't think gold and crypto are very like it's just how people actively engage with them. I don't think they're correlated in the same way. Now, if you said the same thing with like a Bitcoin ETF or maybe some other crypto ETF or whatever, I think it'd be a little bit more analogous. But the only reason I say that is it's one thing to be able to anticipate previous behavior off of another asset, but then what do you do when that behavior isn't the case and you're now entirely in a different realm? And that's the thing. I say that now because people would get into gold for entirely different reasons than people that get into crypto, especially when it's like bull markets or hype or whatever. You know what I mean?
well, I would say that Bitcoin has that store of value that gold does, right? And so that's one of the reasons why folks are making that allocation towards Bitcoin. And then the same utility that silver brings on an industrial level is what the utility coins bring, like XRP or XDC. And so my point, when I brought that up, I brought that up to say it's not going to be the same. I actually expect it to be more. And in fact, it already has been, because we've seen these digital assets that have done 100x, not just 5 or 10x. So my argument when I brought that correlation in was that crypto is going to do more, and that volatility is the opportunity. But like you said, what's going to be sustained after that?
This
And
is where things get this is where things get dangerous. So just like what you said, let's say we all think, yeah, it's going to be more. So let's just say just by the numbers, it's going to be more. So let's say analogous wise on both sides, it's going to be more just because of excitement. Well, if we're all anticipating that, it's going to be even more than that. And if we're also anticipating there's going to be a crash, then the crash is going to be even worse than what it would actually be because we're all anticipating. That's what I'm saying about the environment of crypto and gold. Or so no one in gold really anticipates that of like, oh yeah, everyone's going to get in and pile in. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of like market speculation and hype and frothiness or whatever, but crypto is just rampant with that. So like, yeah, it's easy to go crypto is going to go up, but then how many people are going to get caught in the middle as it comes back down?
well, that's what makes it fun, right, Quincy?
Amen. Amen. If you're willing to say that's what makes it fun, you got to also say that's what makes it fun when people lose everything, man, because that's what happens. Like,
No, 100%. I mean, that's why in October of 2021, I was saying, guys, I think that this is the end of this cycle. We're coming back. I mean, I've been one that I don't do just pump, content. So yeah, I'm 100% right there with you. And that's why I think the conversation's relevant and why it's important is to understand expectations for this bull run. And, this, I think a lot of folks think that this is going to be just the utility bull run. No, we still have plenty of speculation, which means that we have a dramatic run up. We're going to have a dramatic pullback, and preparing folks for that, I think, is important. That's the only reason why I really bring it up. Right. Um, I did want to, vet dipped. Okay. I did want to say, if anybody else can, please feel free to share out the space. Feel free to send a request and come on up. I'd love to have that. Quincy, I did have a audience question for you, and the
yeah, let's hear
question
it.
is, what was the most overlooked piece of news or development that happened in the XDC ecosystem in 2023 that we probably don't know about?
The over or underhyped piece of news. Um, yeah, probably that there were treasuries issued on the XCC network. That's probably the biggest one, as well as securities with trade tech. Um, but uh, we're starting to see established assets. Oh, what is it? Real world assets, WRAs. That's what it's called or whatever. But we're starting to see real world assets published on chain, and they don't get the same hype. Like the reason I say this is, and I say this because the same the same token that was used to launch a security on chain through trade tech is the exact same NFT contract that's used to launch a stupid like NFT meme coin or whatever. So it's the same thing. It's an NFT, right? It's an NFT, but it's a security, and the whole security is like trade tech. They do this whole thing with invoices, and they're basically they buy these invoices to be able to put cash up front, and then they redeem the invoice at the time of like delivery or whatever redemption, and then they take the profit off that and they issue that almost as a not as a dividend, but they issue that as profit to the trade tech holders. And it's an NFT. It's an NFT that is able to generate revenue off of this process that's being provided by trade tech. And there are a few other ones like that. Like there's USTY. It's also tokenized treasuries and stuff. Now, I don't actually think these need to be like insane news. I do think it needs to be big news, but it's one of those things where it's not sexy. It's an NFT. It is just like any of these other NFTs. It does something that it facilitates a process that was already being done. They're just doing this on chain. TradeTech already did this. Like they've been doing this for a while. They're just able to do it on chain and have it entirely programmatic. So I think that is actually the most valuable point that gets overlooked is that someone created a security on chain that was able to be managed as an NFT and operated programmatically, and they're very easily able to conduct a business that they already had and able to do it through the smart contract. And then ideally, like since they have the smart contract and they have these security tokens, third-party services can now interact with those security tokens and now put them in other types of instruments, whether it's like derivatives, whether it's whatever. And that's the thing, since they're securities, the other people that have to engage with them are other businesses. These aren't just open out there for everybody. There's a whole process to be able to interact with these tokens because they're securities. So there's actually like a little bit of structure on what it is to be able to manage securities on chain. Now, don't get me wrong, Trade Tech is operated out of Singapore, so it's not in the US. But the thing is it's happening and it doesn't get the
Well,
same hype because it's just not as sexy.
yeah, Quincy, I wanted to ask you about that, and then I will bring up persistence. I see you there, brother. But I did want to ask Quincy. I mean, your thoughts on that, because for me, I think it's important that we're now getting institutions and different, funds and players that are basically coming in, and what they're doing is they're just saying, yes, what we are issuing is a security on chain, and they're already working with the regulators in a way where they're kind of trusted by the regulators, and I think this is an important step in the right direction. So your thoughts on that, as far as like folks issuing different types of securities on chain, whether it be
So
bonds, equities, what have you.
So as of right now, so you can talk about like all of this in all over the world. It's a little bit different, but I'll talk about the U.S. a little bit because I had a whole conversation with someone about this. So right now, the biggest thing is was the SPV, special purpose vehicles, and that's what people mostly do to be able to tokenize securities. Basically, an SPV is just a company, and then they tokenize the company. So you can manage the company as is, but then the ownership components are referenced as these tokens or whatever. And right now, any sort of compliance is entirely predicated on whatever that company's compliance is. So it's not like you have to do extra stuff to make the tokens compliant. It's just that if this company operates in this way under these legal guidelines, then anything that this company produce will also be under those guidelines as well. Now, it's not a perfect thing. It doesn't mean just people just do anything they want, but it is enough of a guideline for people to start getting into really what it is tokenizing companies, tokenizing securities. People do this with properties. People do this with different companies. They'll create an SPV, and that's the biggest thing happening in the U.S. right now. In terms of like Singapore and the other ones, I'm not entirely sure what the most popular thing to do to be able to manage assets. Although I hear a lot about it, and the only reason I say that it's all different. What's happening in Japan, Singapore, the UAE, wherever, it's all different. but the main thing is, at least in the United States, is the SPVs and being able to tokenize a company, and then the company's compliance is or the compliance is under that company, and then people go from there.
Yeah, and the reason why I say that is because I think there's a lot of people in the crypto space that's like they want to make the argument that nothing should be a security, and I think that there definitely are a lot of
I
securities that are already issued, and a lot of ICOs that were conducted in a way that made it a
well,
security. So
well, it's funny that you say that. It's
yeah,
funny that you say that. I would argue no one would want that. It's funny that you say that because people go, oh, without a security, it means if something goes wrong, you have no one to point the finger at. You have a fully automated application that runs entirely autonomously, and you just lost all of your money. Congratulations, you can't sue anybody.
yeah, and I think that us in the U.S. we have so much PTSD or whatever issues with the SEC that we want to avoid securities completely. When it's not supposed to be like that, right? It's supposed to be a process that does protect the investors, obviously, and allows folks to issue and raise funds for an investment, a business, or an opportunity. And I think that yeah, it's a matter of to the broader point of legitimate issuers and legitimate institutions coming and choosing to build on top of these ledgers is kind of what we're seeing, and it's a step in the right direction. So yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, I see this idea. People carry this idea of the networks not being securities and carry that to every token not being a security. And the main reason that people say the networks aren't securities is because they're autonomous. They are entirely sovereign entities that are not under the control of any one individual. So the entire premise is based off that. All these other assets and such are entirely predicated off of somebody issuing that asset and managing that asset in some regard. Now, don't get me wrong. People like to try to. I spent almost the past year and a half trying to create a fully automated application just for a fucking lawyer to tell me you better lawyer the fuck up, buddy. Because I swear to God, you can guarantee you're gonna get sued if anything happens. And I'm like, oh God, oh God. But that's the thing. If you're not on that side of it, you're not gonna care. You're gonna go, we shouldn't have securities, blah 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 blah. But then I'm like, what would happen? And this sort of I wouldn't even say this sort of happened with the Tornado Cash, but what would happen if someone built an application in which they are fully free from any liability that that application may have had? And I don't just mean it just crashes and loses a bunch of people money. What if that application is running international trades, whatever? Or people do this with Tornado Cash. Someone created an open source software, and they said, hey, look, it's open source, anybody can use it, whatever. People started using it to launder money, and then the government just went after the guy who created it. You may say, hey, it's wrong, it's whatever. Doesn't change the fact the government sees somebody should be responsible. This is a sovereign individual. This is a sovereign application that is entirely decentralized. Yet they still penalize the person who created it because somebody has to be responsible. And it's one of those things where I'm like, you can't get around that because would you want to be on the other side where you get screwed and nobody's responsible and all your money's just gone because that's just how it is? That would be the worst thing ever. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a place for fully autonomous applications, but just the notion that we just shouldn't have or we shouldn't have securities and just have just that, I don't think people truly, and I only say that because what would happen is the name of the game in that regard would be create an application that would blow up big enough to make you a ton of money, but make sure it crashes so you're not responsible. And every single freaking rug would be that. It would be an app that blows up, crashes, and they go, hey, I didn't mean to do that. I just purposely put a bug in there and destroyed it. So you see what I mean? It's just, and that's the thing, they would do that. So so when it actually crashes, they would say it got hacked or whatever, as opposed to saying, oh, it was a scam to begin with. And that's the thing, and don't get me wrong, I only say this because why wouldn't they do that? Seriously, if you're telling me I can build an application, make a ton of money, and be entirely not responsible for anything that happened to it, and then get incredibly rich off of who knows what? People can I can screw over as many people as I want to, and you're telling me I'm not responsible? Is that what people truly want out of crypto?
Wait, we're not going to name any names, Quincy, but are you talking about Hex?
Let's just say I'm not talking about anyone in particular. Let's put it that way.
Because that's what I always thought about Hex. That's what I've heard is that he created the perfect decentralized Ponzi scheme. And I mean, we'll see how far Richard makes it with that. But no, I joke. I 100% hear you out, brother. It's what's so sad is we shouldn't be afraid of working with the regulators, right? It should be, oh, come on in, just like the SEC tells us. We invite folks to just come on in. Well, it should be like that. It really should. It's not though, right?
I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding between the role of the regulators and the role of people, in the space or to be regulated. So I only say this because I spent a good amount of time just really just going over a lot of stuff that I sort of reviewed the Series 7, talked to a lot of brokers and stuff like that. And oh God, I almost forgot what I was gonna say. But oh God, it just slipped my mind. Goodness God. Man, let me write this down.
Now
Um,
you're a registered investment advisor. Is that what you said, Quincy?
Oh, there we go. Now I remember. Oh,
Okay, there you go. I hope
no, no,
you
no,
know.
no. The biggest thing is there's a misunderstanding on what the regulators are supposed to do. One of the biggest protections that the regulators are supposed to do is to make sure that the people you're engaging with are honest. It's not to ensure that you make money. It's not to ensure that you don't lose money. It's to make sure you're not being lied to, exploited, or taken advantage of. That is the number one thing that's running rampant in crypto. That's not to defend Gary Gensler. That's not to defend the SEC. But there is an element where the entire premise of their job is to make sure that people are being honest and operating forthright. Right now in crypto, if you were to say, "Oh, whatever, get rid of that," well, what are you gonna do about all the liars, scams, the every single one in the space that's just saying we're going to the moon just to take your money and run off with it? Like that's what's happening. And that's the thing. Right now, nothing's being done because people don't want the regulators. But that's exactly the regulators' job is to go after people who do stuff like that. Especially if what they're doing is to be argued that it's a security. Like it's one of these things where, and don't get me wrong, like you said, it may sound like I'm defending the SEC. There are a lot of things you can criticize the SEC for, but there's one thing that people need to remember: the entire premise of their job is to regulate not just your money, but the people that promise your ability to make investments in the first place. Like imagine going to a broker and there was no freaking rule on whether they can say to you, and they purposely mislead you into a bad investment to make you rich. That's crypto. That's crypto right now. That is crypto. And people get so mad at the regulators. Now I'm wrong. Like I said, a lot of stuff to say about the regulators, but they don't get mad at the people that are just committing fraud in their faces.
Cough, cough, ETHgate. Yes, 100%. I want to welcome up Persistence. Persistence, did you have something to say, brother?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? I love the passion, Quincy.
He's operating on 2-speed by default, by the way.
No, I love it. I love it. Quick, just a different perspective maybe on this ETF. I kind of see it as a possible consolidation of the whole entire market, right? Like, I don't know if you guys already talked about this or not, but is it possible that all these investment funds like BlackRock or ARK Investments, whatever, is it possible that they buy up all the assets and essentially just sideline them in an ETF and don't move them ever again? Like I listened to a clip from Cathie Wood the other day, and the way she spoke, it sounded like they were trying to capture these assets so that other people couldn't have them, right? So, once it goes in an ETF, yeah, they could trade the shares, but they're not necessarily going to be trading the asset, right? And they're definitely not going to be using it for, to source liquidity, right? So it just sounds like they're trying to grab all these. I don't know if it's possible, but if it's possible, could they be grabbing all these assets just to basically put them in an ETF and essentially just like a liquidity, and sideline them so that, the retail doesn't have access to them anymore?
I don't think they're thinking that. I think they're thinking that there's enough people. Oh wait, hold on. I don't think they're thinking that. I think there's enough. I think they're thinking that there are enough people that are basically engaging in these markets that they can provide this. An ETF is not a new thing. I think they're just going, oh, this should be the financial instrument to get into because this is popular now. I don't think they're planning on doing it. I don't think they would have done it if it wasn't popular. Like literally, it seems like the popular thing to do. Let's do it now. Same thing. Like, why did they do this 3 or 4 years ago if they wanted to take advantage of everybody?
Do you see that? Do you see these investment funds as? Do they think these assets are a threat or a or do they really see them as ways of making money? Because I don't think they really see them as ways of
a threat to what? Because you got to remember, these guys are boomers. These guys don't even know how to reset their own Wi-Fi. These things used to be technology that they just don't understand. Like a lot of this doesn't have to be anything special. It's just my son talked or my grandson talked about crypto. Now, I'm not just to say that they're all ignorant, but the biggest thing is there is an element of ignorance there where it's like, oh, is it threatening? Is it? They just made it go. And I say this because when I worked at a PE firm, they would go, oh, let's get into crypto, and they knew nothing at all. They're like, I guess it's hype. Let's get into it. Let's accept ETH now for whatever reason. It's not like they had these like grand plans of, oh my God, it's having an effect on us. If anything, they care about making money and they see it as a new way to make money, or they see it as a new fad to get into to provide whatever on. Like, I don't think these people have like super sophisticated like ideas of these crypto technologies having an effect on their livelihood in any regard.
You don't think they? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to add on. I mean, don't you think that that's the way for them to make the most amount of money, though, Quincy, is to, one, control the retail retirement accounts and 401ks that do want to get exposure and have control of the underlying asset, or at least have a position exposure to the underlying asset so that they can ride the wave up and they can make their fees off of everyone else who wants to invest as well.
You're describing a perspective that's very, very, very specific to the retail investor. What if I told you they make the majority of their money doing anything else, and this is just a cash grab to hop onto? Because it very much could be. I think there's all this idea of, oh, they're doing this, oh, they're doing this, but it's really like I say this because I meet a lot of these people, and the biggest thing they go is, I don't really know what the deal is, but we're just gonna hop into it because it's fad. It's a fad right now.
So Quincy,
it's not. this big old, oh my God, they're trying to try. If anything, they're trying to be the first ones to be able to produce this new product, so people don't have to go through all that extra crap to manage whatever Bitcoin or whatever. And they go, look at us, you can hold Bitcoin without having like. I don't think they're thinking about retail control. If anything, they're thinking about how they can increase their cash flow. That is what they're thinking about. That is what's going through their fucking brain. That is the monkey on the fucking, or the hamster on the freaking spin wheel going, how do I make more money? How do I make more money? How do I make more money? He
Well,
may be going, well, are they manipulating retail? Well, maybe, maybe not. But at the same time, there are regular fucking doofus influencers manipulating retail, telling people to buy, freaking pumping the, there's not, you don't have to be a big institution. Like, people who freaking call Logan Paul for this crap. You don't have to be a big institution to have a grand plan to manipulate people. This happens every day in crypto with regular ass people.
well, I use gold as a former example of this, right? What they did was they opened up the gold ETF, they bought up all the supply in the COMEX and the LBMA, and then they controlled the supply on the market, right? So they're able to control the supply, which inevitably through the futures markets they were able to drive the price down to what it is now. But I mean, essentially, that's what, as long as they control the assets themselves, they can control the supply, and therefore, and these assets are a threat, in my opinion, to these
What you're
institutions.
describing, for gold, yeah, great. But that same logic, why don't they just pump $1 billion into some random small cap coin, make it just rug everybody? Like what you're describing, they don't have to do all this crazy. They can just take any amount of money that they have, pump it into anything, and just rug anything. Like
They're
they
trying to
don't have to.
sustain their institutions, though. They're not trying to. They're not worried about the money. They're worried about going obsolete, in my
But
opinion.
why would they go under? Like why? Like are you saying that?
Well,
Oh,
I think you guys are both right because what's happening is BlackRock and these institutions have to be talking about crypto because their investors want to know what's going on. They want exposure, and to maintain the largest asset manager in America, the BlackRock, that has had 10 trillion, now it's a little bit less. But to maintain that much assets under management, you now have to be able to tell your investors, oh yeah, we do know what's going on with crypto, or yes, we do have exposure. So I think you guys are both kind of right in that regard of that they just have to be able to explain why or why not or what cryptos they are investing in at this point to their investors. Otherwise, folks are going to be like, you're not with the current times. And
So Zach, one question: do you think that, like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it kind of seems like to me all the liquidity right now available is kind of like it's drying up quickly, right? There's not a lot of money, there's not a lot of people with dry powder sitting on the sideline waiting to put into this. Maybe there is, I don't know, but do you get that feeling as well, or do you think that these like, where are they going to get this liquidity from to make essentially a whole new market, right? A whole new, like, aren't they going to have to take it from traditional investments and put it into these?
There are literally what's called market makers. They are people that have a ton of money that literally participate with people like this to be able to provide liquidity in the way.
So those people have been waiting around for ETF. That's what you're telling me.
It's not that they're waiting. There are market makers. They wait around for any opportunity to be able to produce liquidity. Like they're like, whether it's a VC, whether it's some big, it doesn't matter who it is. There are very much people out there that provide liquidity to liquid markets to be able to take advantage of the volatility. Like,
all right.
First off, I want to say, Quincy, I freaking love the energy, bro. Everything that I've been hearing in spaces for the last few months is, oh, I'm whining because my coin's down, or I haven't pumped yet, and this meme coin pumped, and blah, 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 and everybody's complaining. Quincy's showing up with the energy today, and I'm here for it, brother. Absolutely. I do see, feel free to send up a request. Come on up. I'd love to chat with everyone here today. I did send a request to Gary Cardone. I don't know if you're available, brother. I'd love to hear from you. I know that you have a little bit more perspective as far as the institutional investors and what some of these fund managers might be thinking. So I'd love to hear from you, and I definitely respect the Twitter spaces that you've been having over there on all topics. So much respect your way. But with that being said, Johnny, welcome to the chat. How are we doing?
Hey, thanks, Zach. Thanks for having me up. I just got in here. I just listened to Quincy's justified rant. So, yeah, I heard he was talking about, like, the scam that's going on. And man, I go into these rooms. It's like entertainment, man. It's like the scammers are calling other people scammers. The people who don't want regs are the ones that are scamming people. It's like plausible deniability. They just say, oh, like Quincy just said, it's like someone will come up with a project and they'll have something going on, a bot here. Oh, well, I didn't put that bot there, and blah, 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 and blame it on someone else. And everybody's stealing from everybody. And only a few percent is the one that makes the money on these projects. And the people who don't want regs to come in are the people who are the scammers, bro, to be honest with you, I think we should all wish for the regs to come, and I'm sure they're coming quickly. I for sure want regulations, to happen to regulate the space, and like that movie Gladiator, when what's the name said, Russell Crowe said, as a soldier, you have the privilege or the advantage of looking your enemy in the eye. The space that it is right now, you don't know who's hitting you, who's stealing from who. So that's I just wanted to add that perspective. Thanks, guys.
I love that. At least a soldier gets to see gets to look his enemy in the eye.
Yeah, guys and gals, thank you for joining us. If you guys haven't already, please share out the space. Please feel free to send a request. Come on up. The good news is we are back in Wifey's hometown. So she's hanging out with her lady friends right now. So your boy has the free pass to keep on running up the space, and we're going to take advantage of that, keep the party rocking and rolling. Did actually open up an adult beverage so I could enjoy the session here today with you guys and kick it back. Trying to break up Quincy going at 2x speed and bring it back. And once again, folks, the opportunity here, I think, is to understand that this space is about to experience massive growth, and we are just trying to determine what is real, what is fake. There's a lot of narratives in this space, and Quincy, I think you did a good job of highlighting the fact that we just still have influencers pumping and dumping their audience. For me, it's a matter of just showing up and saying, hey guys, here's how I'm moving. I move in full transparency. I don't have any sponsors. I don't do any shilling. I just say, hey guys, I got a little bit of silver. I got a few cryptocurrencies. I'm operating my businesses and just trying to make it for my family. And determining where the real institutional flows are going to come into this space, I think, is the money making opportunity. Quincy, like you said, there's a real difference between the caliber of investors and money and builders that are coming into the space. You have, on one hand, institutions that are coming in, and like you said, one institution, one family office can deploy $1 billion, can start moving, literally hundreds of billions of dollars of value. And versus on the other side, we have retail, which may bring activity, but you would need 100 or 1,000 times the activity to make up for the money that is going to be coming in. And so, yeah, I think that Quincy, you've done a good job of calling it out and always been one to shoot it straight. So I just want to say, definitely respect you for that, brother, and thank you so much for all the knowledge you're so gracious to share here in the spaces.
I really appreciate that too, because just like what you said, yeah, maybe if we saw users at scale, and that's why apps are so important. That's the activity at scale. You can get 1 million users through one app more than you can get 1 million individual people to send crypto to each other.
I have one question. Can y'all talk about the halving that's supposed to happen this year? Also, I only heard you guys talk about the ETF.
What do you think, Quincy?
What was that again? What about the ETF?
The halving.
The
Thoughts on the
halving.
halving.
Oh God,
Yeah.
oh my
Sorry.
goodness. So let me give you
Bring that
okay.
energy.
So no, okay. So it's not even really about the halving or even about the ETF. I can't determine whether it's the halving that dictates the behavior because there's less Bitcoin being issued out, or if it's the anticipation of the halving that dictates the behavior that causes people to engage now. I don't. That's the only thing I really have to say about that. People go, "Oh, the halving, the halving, the halving." I'm like, your enthusiasm for the halving almost makes me anticipate that it's the anticipation for it versus the actual thing. I only say that because if that's the case, then if there's I don't even know how to describe it. It's not even that anything bad would happen. I just don't know if it's the actual halving that's creating this type of dynamic or this type of activity around, like you said, the price appreciation, all that, or if it's just people anticipating it. And because it's a defined date, defined time, go, oh, this is going to happen. As soon as it happens, or as soon as people believe it's going to happen, then everyone starts jumping into it. It's almost like the meme of interest rates, where talking about interest rates can have the same effect of raising interest rates if everyone's anticipating that effect. It's exactly like that. I just can't tell which one comes first.
So Quincy, are you saying that, like, for example, like last week when we had that big red candle on Bitcoin, are you saying they basically just rugged everybody and just tried to basically do a money grab? Like they hyped it up and then they just
How would you get that? How would you get that? Is that because people were excited? If that's the case, I wouldn't necessarily. It would be on who is the leader of the excitement, and it could literally be anybody. You want to say Michael Saylor, you want to say Pomp or whatever. Sure, but then you would have to accuse them of bumping up that behavior to dump it. And that's not my accusation. My accusation is just simply it's not anyone doing anything malicious. Is the anticipation of the event causing the event, or is it the event that's causing the event? You see what I
Yeah.
mean?
Okay. Yeah, I understand. I got you.
For example, right? I don't know if this is a great example. But is it is when let's say you want to catch a flight to the Super Bowl or something. Is it the fact that so many people are going to the Super Bowl that's causing the flight prices to go up? And this isn't a great example. Or is it just the anticipation of it, and they know they can sell it because of the anticipation of it that causes it to go up as well?
Well,
Right.
It's just
Right.
this,
No, I
we were
got you.
talking about this earlier with Bill in regards to the price suppression of XRP, and he was saying that it's not just the lawsuit that's suppressing XRP price. I think it's the same thing. It wasn't just XRP being suppressed by the lawsuit. There's also additional factors. Same thing for why Bitcoin pumped from 20,000 to 69,000 was yes, the Bitcoin halving did take place, and actually the run up was leading from January to March was significant, and then in March, Bitcoin had a 60% pull down during March 2020. I actually think that we could see something similar because I think that we are set for another correction in the broader equities and ongoing banking crisis and everything else that I talk about. But you also have to factor in that yes, we had the halving in 2020, but we also had rates drop back down to zero, risk on assets went nuts, and the most amount of money printing that we've ever had. They literally printed over a third of all currency in circulation during that 12 to 24-month period. That all coincided, and that all was factors that led to that Bitcoin pump.
I mean, those are all factors too. I guess with that too, do you think the factors do you think the factors currently are analogous to the factors that you've outlined previously, or do you think they're different? If they are different, how different are they? And with how different are they, what impact would that have on the next coming bull market?
I think it's a lot of the same. I really do think it's a lot of the same. It's the currencies were devalued heavily during 2020, rates going back down to zero. So folks started to begin to look for alternatives. I think the same thing's happening right now. This is why countries are moving to Bitcoin in kind of a bigger way, like El Salvador. But then there's also just regular investors that are saying, I
Well,
need an alternative, whether that's gold, whether that's Bitcoin.
I'm actually going to challenge that real quick. So
Yeah.
people say like El Salvador is using Bitcoin. What's the activity they're using Bitcoin around, and how can I participate with that? And who are they
No,
engaging with?
trust me, bro, 100%. I think it's a load of hot shit. You 100%.
Like I
Yeah,
say this because
yeah,
people act like, oh, they're a government, therefore they're
yeah.
totally not just hopping on some stupid trend, and they're totally like, shut the fuck up. Like people totally take advantage of the fact that something's hype right now. Like don't play this game that like, and don't get me wrong, maybe they are using it. If you're gonna say someone's using it, tell me how they're using it. Don't just go, well, Ecuador did X, Y. It's like, I
No,
mean, like
Quincy,
if
I'm
you ever,
glad you said that because that's how I feel about 99% of crypto. They say, oh, so and so's a partner of ours. Okay, how are they using your token? Oh,
yeah,
wait, they're not. You did a consultation, you did a photo op, you spoke at their conference. That's not a real partnership that utilizes the token. There's a big difference, right?
yeah,
So I agree 100%. I think that we have similar narratives coming up. We're still going through the ramifications and the impact of the massive money printing. And so I think that Bitcoin's set to have significant price appreciation just based off of all of those factors. As far as how high is it going to go, I don't really care because I'm not invested in Bitcoin, right? For me, I have some other positions that I've taken, but the number one crypto still remains to be Bitcoin, and folks want an alternative. They're looking at digital currencies. They know digital is the future, and that's all it takes, along with some memes, and then you have a pump. And so yeah, I think that, and I'll add a little bit more analysis and a little bit further speculation, prediction, whatever you want to call it. I think that Quincy, there's an ongoing banking crisis, debt, currency, and liquidity crisis that hasn't been fixed. They've continued to kick the can down the road. So that's why I'm expecting a pullback in the markets here, here shortly. But then I'm expecting a response similar to 2020, where the Fed does cut rates once again. Maybe they don't cut them back down to zero, but they cut rates. They turn back on that money printer, along with the election cycle that we're in. Those are the big factors that I think are really going to drive Bitcoin to maybe a higher price, a new all-time high, whatever you want to predict. I just think that we go back into a risk-on environment later into this year, after whatever black swan scenario happens, or whatever wars already going on, whatever the scenario may be. There's a dozen different scenarios, but I believe that if you just look at the reverse repo markets getting drained, you look at the ongoing banking crisis, it's not over. And so when that cracks a little bit further, or we have another issue, we have another scenario, that's when I expect the Fed to come back in with a similar response to 2020. And that's what I think really is the catalyst that drives this bull run, along with the additional speculators that are new to crypto and just showing up.
Yeah, actually, what I was gonna say, what I believe in what we're in right now. So we talk about like a utility run. Well, I think right now we're in a set of what we call, or what I like to call, hype cycles, and basically everything around most of the market comes down to what level of enthusiasm anybody may have at any given point, as well as the anticipation of a given event. Now, this could be what happens today, what happens tomorrow, what happens next week, or what happens after the lawsuit, or what happens after whatever. It's very reactionary, but it's entirely based off of these hype cycles. And the reason I say they're hype cycles is why I say the whole thing with the Bitcoin and people anticipating all that. It's all part of these cycles. And the reason I say that is it's easy to go, oh my goodness, the market's going super crazy when it's like super like euphoric. And you see, it's like you know how people like almost like measure the market with like the fear and greed index. I think that measurement right there is a perfect illustration of being able to mark. What's a good way to put it? Being able to mark the current standing on, or the current sentiment on, where people believe the market's going to go. And I think the entire crypto market's entirely based off these hype cycles. It's based off of how you feel and what you're anticipating, and around what events are you anticipating. And everything's like that. And I only say that because it's easy to say this after the fact, because they're like, oh, I saw some news and I didn't. Whenever someone says that they saw some news and there was no price appreciation, they saw an element of the hype cycle but didn't see the result of it. But it's not because that was part of the hype cycle. It was just it was just news, right? And I feel like we're just in these hype cycles. People get hype and they get low, and they get hype and they get low, and then people get built up. And don't get me wrong, if you want to take advantage of this to like become an influencer and promise people that you're going to go to the moon, you can just artificially create hype cycles, right? But the thing is it's entirely based off enthusiasm. It's entirely based off of emotion. It's entirely based off of this idea that it doesn't really matter what the idea is, whether you're gonna be rich, whether it's gonna happen, whether whatever. And I feel like we're stuck in these hype cycle systems. Before we get into a utility bull run or whatever, I feel like we're just stuck in these hype cycles. And either A, people run out of money and the hype cycles die down, or B, people just get jaded to the system because they're just like, I've seen this before, I've got burned before, or I knew someone that got burned before, and I just don't trust it as much as I do now. Now, I don't think we're there yet, but it's one of those things where I feel like we're still just like it's like ever expanding and contracting in terms of these hype cycles. We get all excited and then come back down. We get all excited and then come back down. And sometimes they're all excited over a weekend and come back down again. Or maybe we're all down for like a weekend or 2 weeks and then we explode or whatever again. And it's just that's the biggest thing that's causing a lot of movement right now. And then we all anticipate it as well. So when people see this news and they're like, I didn't see something happen, it's because they're anticipating the hype cycle.
I want to get to Angels, and then I want to get to Turday. But I did want to add one final point on that, Quincy. So I've been pointing out to my audience the same thing that is taking place right now that took place in 2019. In 2019, though, it was a 340% bull trap rally from 3,000 to almost 14,000 before we got hit with March 2020, and we had a 60% drawdown in Bitcoin in that month, and we had an overall drawdown of 70% for Bitcoin from 14,000 back down to about 3,600, 700, 800, depending on your exchange. But the point being, we had a 342% bull trap rally before we got hit in spring of 2020. And then we did continue back on that bull run. I see so many similar things kind of setting themselves up. And I look at the average retail crypto investor that's just thinking, halvings here, I want an alternative, I want to get rich quick. And that's what's making them dump their last dollars into this thing. And you have the BlackRock narrative that started with a fake news story. People forget that this whole rally, the bulk of this bull trap rally that we're in the middle of started in October, on October 14th, when the fake news came out that the ETF was approved. That was not true. The ETFs were not approved, but that started the rally that brought us up here to our current levels. And we're going to get an answer next week. And I am willing to throw out my opinion, which is no matter whether the ETFs are approved, delayed, or denied, we're about to get a buy the rumor, sell the news event. And I think that folks should be prepared for that. So that's my analysis on where we're at right now in this current cycle. But I believe that after we get through, the blacks, some sort of scenario, I think that once again, we're in an election year. Fed Chair Jerome Powell is going to come back in and paper this thing over and make sure that everybody's feeling good as we enter this next election. And so that's going to all lead and fuel and drive this next bull run. I think a lot of speculation does need to be cleaned out, though. Still a heavy amount of speculation for sure. Let's go to Angels, and then let's go to Turday.
How y'all doing, guys? Happy New Year! Happy New Year!
Yes,
I was
doing
just
good.
listening
How we
to
doing?
I was just listening to Quincy talk about the SEC and how he's trying to let people know that what I mean, that they need to be there to protect the people. I actually used to fight that war of trying to convince people over and over that this new technology is here to kind of congeal, to amplify, to be kind of to provide more options. It's not like us against the man. And I think in the nascent stages of crypto, it was that. And there might be people that still try to push these hardline narratives of we're against the proverbial man. But if you really look back, I think there's a lot of hope in people changing their mind simply because of self-interest. If you look at the ETH maxis of before, all they screamed was proof of work, proof of work. If it's not proof of work, then it's not then it's not officially decentralized. And then all of a sudden it went to proof of stake and everyone got quiet and they just changed their religion. I see it with Bitcoin where they're like, we got the censorship-free blockchain and we want to promote, the supercomputer. Then all of a sudden ordinals come out and they all of a sudden want to censor. You know what I mean? So, and we've seen these changes. And I think as they realize that what we're really looking for is a ubiquitous mass adoption, where people will be utilizing crypto, but not necessarily noticing it or realizing it. Maybe perhaps a good example would be MoneyGram and Stellar. A person's always sending money to Peru. They don't realize that if they look in the fine print, they could see, powered by Stellar through MoneyGram. I think the biggest adoption won't be televised. It'll just be people doing what they simply were doing before in a system that is more efficient, that is quicker. And instead of jumping in camps, and a lot of people are getting into different camps, every single month or two, I see that two cryptocurrencies actually partner up. One may provide off ramps. One might provide decentralized storage. The other one, and when you look at these utility coins and you follow the partnerships and you follow, I believe that that's the reward that we get for caring enough, right? Putting our curiosity to work, putting in hours of looking. To me, when at the end of this bull run, I don't ever look at charts. I don't believe in charts. I feel like I would be probably better off flipping a quarter. I just believe that if you value invest, and you follow the regulation, the partnerships, the teams, and it's kind of like to me a very simple scenario, and it's not as complex as people are making it. I just think that these preconceived notions of us against the government, like he said it, right? Like no drug dealer likes cops, right? If some guy's selling some nefarious drug, he's always going to tell you oh no, we don't need cops around here. And everybody wanted the Pirates of the Caribbean until they wanted to call the Coast Guard to get some help. Think about how many people said, oh no, I just want to have a decentralized swap or decentralized this, and they don't need to know my name. And then the minute that there's a theft, those are the guys who are lawyering up. Those are the guys who are calling their congressmen. Those are the guys who are putting these class action suits. So they say one thing one moment and they change. So to bring a little bit of hope for the future, anybody who's standing on anything hardline right now, for their self-interest, will just fall in place and understand what what this technology is actually doing. It might be the opposite. And to be on that, that's the same thing as people talking about Web3 all the time. You hear Web3, Web3, Web3. Very little projects are fully on chain. You got gaming developers who know better, who shouldn't even say something like that because they might be using Unreal Engine and they're using AWS in the background. You know what I mean? And they're claiming Web3 because it's information that people are not really informing people. And people like Quincy, I like the fact that he comes in, gets into the nuance, and kind of gives you an easy way to understand it. Because I've tried battering my head with people saying this is not so much of a competition as it is an evolution of tokenization of everything. Am I wrong to believe in what I'm been looking at for the last 4 years?
Yeah, I think what ends up happening is well, I think there's a few things in that. I think what ends up happening is people. So I think there's a lack of understanding, and I said this before. I don't know if I was on a few spaces today, so I don't know if I said this in this space earlier. Um, but God, no, I need to write this down. Hold on. I literally just forgot what I was about to say. God damn it. I was in the middle of writing something down. Crap. What was the last thing you just said?
I was just
Um,
talking about how people,
yes,
miseducate
yes.
people by
There
using
we
like
go.
Web3 or
Yeah.
metaverse,
So
whatever.
there's a lot of ignorance in the space on what these technologies are used for because these technologies are incredibly esoteric. Like they, unless you're in finance, economics, like tech, a lot of people don't really know what to do with this. So what ends up happening, and you can sort of blame, if you want to blame Satoshi for this, you can, I guess. But people started picking up an ideology to make up for the lack of understanding of crypto. That's why people won't tell you what you would do with these tokens. They would just tell you it's against the government or it's because the government prints dollars, these are better. It's every single thing that's said is an ideological point. It's not, oh, these technologies do X as opposed to Y. It's the government's bad, therefore go to this, or some other ideological point, therefore we do this or whatever. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because there is an ideology of there's an open source ideology. There is a element of I don't know if you can call it like personal sovereignty amongst I don't know organizations or entities. A means of being able to exchange without really without a government payment system, fiat currency, whatever. These are all great, but I think people get so stuck in the ideology that that's all they see. That's why you saw people for the longest time just sucking the dick of proof of work, where they're just like, oh, proof of work is the greatest thing ever. It's not because they're arguing any technical facet of proof of work. It's just ideologically driven to the notion that oh, Satoshi created proof of work, therefore it's literally just that. And it's a little annoying because like ideology isn't like tech at all. So like it almost has nothing to do with what these things are actually being done for, but it can hold people back, right? So people will say, oh, crypto Web3. There's no reason to have a Web2 and Web3 mix. Web3 goes over here. Web2 goes over here. They do not mix. That is an ideological point I see all the time. People think that they can take every single thing that you could possibly ever do and you just want to cram it onto the blockchain just for the sake of cramming it on the blockchain, as opposed to going, hey, you can use these technologies for X, Y, and Z, and then you can use these technologies in tandem with other technologies to be able to create, product, services, applications, or whatever. But there are a lot of ideological points that would hold that back. People would say, oh, well, crypto is meant to be decentralized and you're running part of your application on AWS. Therefore, it's like, therefore what? I'm creating a service. Like, it doesn't change the fact that the part of the service that runs on chain is still decentralized. It doesn't change the fact that the network is still decentralized. Just because I have some portion of my application that operates in a traditional environment doesn't take away from the utility that I'm able to use from these different networks. And I think the ideology sucks that out. Like, I hate to say this because I was actually a little annoyed with the XRP community on this, but they were talking about like the clawback, and a lot of people were just upset because oh, you could claw back the transaction. But from an institutional standpoint, if there was something that went wrong and you weren't able to reverse that transaction, you just like made a blunder that cost you X amount of dollars. There's no way that any organization or any institution will allow you to be able to conduct in secondary assets that are listed on chain without any sort of like safety precautions or mechanism to be able to manage those. But people in the space that really that really aren't going to be the ones that are utilizing those tools are going, well, it goes against the crypto ideology of these, oh, well, they can take your whatever back. And I'm like, these are tools. People utilize these tools. Like, by that logic, are you afraid of putting money in your bank account because, oh my God, they're going to garnish my wages? They literally can garnish your wages. But are you over here scared or your wages are going to be garnished because your money's in a bank account? Like,
Well,
It's funny that you said that because if they were the victim of something, then the clawback would have been their lifeline, and that same person would have been celebrating, saving his funds.
Yeah, yes, but and the other thing too was just the confusion around it because you can't claw back XRP, right? The
well,
clawback was only for tokens
it's
issued
exactly.
on the ledger, but folks were confused and then they get all scared, and then folks, then Twitter, covers it, and yeah, the rest is history. Everybody's confused and has no idea what it's going to mean, but yeah, the clawback never was for XRP being able to be clawbacked. It's only for issued assets.
I never said XRP. I literally said issue assets. XRP, anything that's done on the native network is done through that native network. Everything else is built on top of. So, for instance, if you want to create a clawback for XRP, you have to create a smart contract, which you can on XRP or whatever. But yeah, it's assets that are on top of the network. And that's the whole premise. If I'm going to list an asset on the network, like a stock, like anything, for me not being able to recall that back for something for anything that happened would be insane. Or at the very least, if let's say something happened and I was engaging with someone who did something illegal and I need to go back and do whatever that may be, there are administrative tools that need to be put in front of different technology stacks, software, whatever apps, in order for people to be able to utilize them effectively. Now, like, yeah, I sort of get the notion of, oh goodness, there are all these different whatever, but the thing that people need to be comfortable with isn't that this is the new thing that's being done. It's having an understanding of what can that thing be done and how will people use it, and then having a problem with the use of the thing, not the thing itself. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
I
I
got a
think.
question since he was talking about AWS.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was just gonna say one sec. Clawback is one of those things that our ledger needs for the legitimate issuers to actually issue assets on chain, right, Quincy? It's one of the necessities that I think the XRPL kind of needs before we can get institutions or other issuers to say, okay, we can legitimately issue an asset on here, and we can customize it in a way that allows us to have clawbacks and whatever other features that we need. It's definitely necessary. Yeah, so MetaMan, you can go, and then we'll go to other. MetaMan.
Go ahead, man. I Zach, man, y'all got to get it right too, man. Otha, that's what it is, man. I'm sorry, 100% though. Much love. Um,
Wait, what? Did I say your name wrong?
no, you're good, man. Man, high five, bro. It's Otha.
Otha.
Yeah, man, you're
My
good,
apologies,
man.
brother. Thank you for coming up.
Thank you, man. And Quincy, what's up, man? How you doing, brother?
How
And
you doing?
I mean, I'm doing good, man. I was trying to get on the space earlier, and but I was on the live feed with you, man. You got so much good emotion with this stuff, man, and I thank you. I thank you for everything that you putting out. Both of you and Zach, bro, y'all very eloquently are showing that where this thing is going, and you know, I was and Zach, I did watch the 30,000 Fed thing and everything, man. I gave a thumbs up, 100. You already know I did. You already know I've been following you for a long time, and and Quincy, dude, hey man, you own it, bro. You own it, man.
Thank you
So
so
like
much.
as far as XRP and XDC, because I hold both, and I'm not shy to know what to tell people that I got. Man, hell, it is what it is. But I believe both elements and both things will work together. So, because I already know what it is, man. You guys are a smart contract, and you got oh my God, you got I forgot the company, but I already know what it is. But it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, man. And I only gotta say is Zach. I mean, I'm gonna get off real quick. I'm gonna land a plane. But I know both of these worlds together. They gonna work together, man. And the government, man, they ain't working. They're not even on our side. Period. You feel what I'm saying, Zach? Period. They ain't work with us
Well, you watched the video. I mean, that was the point.
all day, all day. Yes,
I
sir.
wish that YouTube and creating content wasn't like that, where it's like I have to put out the crazy title to get people to watch, but that's where we're at with society. So it's like I'll play that game, but then if you watch the video, which you said you did tune in, my whole deal is just about how our government now, through regulatory capture and corruption, has held back the digital asset space. And it's not just holding back XRP, it's all of the digital asset space. But then the corruption also extends out further into our broader capital markets. That's what the conversation's about, right? For me, anyways. People talk about, the 30,000 Fed buyback. Well, I'm not expecting that at all. Never have, never will be. the whole point of the conversation was actually getting to how the heck do we stop our government from, basically stopping America from having the best capital market in the world like we used to, right? We used to have the gold standard of capital markets and currency. Now we lead, the world in regulatory capture and corruption. I mean, maybe we're not number one, but we're definitely, competing, and there's a significant amount there. And for me, it's just about, do you want to save the country or not? It's not about, oh, I want to pump my crypto, bro. It's like, no, I want my children. I want to be able to operate in a society here where I can build a business and operate it in a free and open marketplace. Just allow me life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's all we're interested in over here.
And that's one thing I love about it, man, because T was on it, man. I think Quincy, yeah. When T and Quincy was on earlier, it was more about people have. Oh, go. Well, I stop and then I'll come back.
Yeah, I see that MetaMan's back. Meta, do you want to go?
Yeah, sorry, I was ruggy. Just a question when Quincy was talking about AWS, like cloud computing, right, Quincy?
Yeah.
Now I hear there's like blockchains that are decentralized cloud computing where they can use like supposedly that the whole slogan is like use your unused what's it called, like CPU or whatever it is that you have that's not being used, so you could basically like I guess they get coins for letting that company use it. But like, do you think that's the future, decentralized cloud computing? Oh,
So, sorta in some regard. The reason I say that is the entire premise of cloud computing is utilizing the infrastructure. So people go, oh, crypto cloud computing. It's about the infrastructure robustness. So you can say all you want, but and it's not even just the infrastructure. There are a zillion services. So if you want to compete with AWS, it's not just there's servers and databases. There's like well over like 150 services that are being provided: streaming services, analytics services, APIs, whatever. There's a zillion services. So yeah, sort of, because there's some services that can be provided, going to be the most robust to be able to scale a given application. Now, it seems to be the race seems to be between AWS and Azure. AWS traditionally had a better infrastructure, but Azure's caught up, as well as Azure having a bunch of tools focused around like Microsoft solutions and whatever, and a lot of businesses use Microsoft. And then Google just has a zillion Google APIs and Google services that people like to use. But then you would go, okay, then crypto. Okay, well, why would I use crypto versus AWS? And then you may go, oh, decentralization, cool, but that's like one component of everything in my application that I need to be done. And maybe there is let's say it's like file storage or file management. Maybe I use that, right? That'd be great. But what am I going to do for basically every other element of my application? Now, what you could do and what you may see is it may not be one cloud blockchain or whatever, but you may see a connection between a multitude of different blockchains that do different things, and then allow an application that can utilize services on those different blockchains to create maybe an application of some sort. I don't think that would be the most popular thing, and if it is, I do believe it's just going to be like an arm of an already established corporation. But the biggest thing is unless these cloud blockchains can compete on all levels, not just storing data or hosting a server, I don't think they're going to be as popular as people anticipate them. Although I do believe there is use. Don't get me wrong. I think the biggest thing may come down to cost and how it's able to run. There's an argument where you might have an application that runs entirely autonomously, where you couldn't really do that in the cloud because you have to put a like credit card on file. So yeah, there's that maybe. So
yeah, because some say that they would need decentralized. I mean, it would be best scale with decentralized cloud computing. That way, you pay what you need, and then it's best. I guess I've heard like
well,
for artificial intelligence or for the metaverse, they need more power, and there's like it's lack of scalability without having that kind of service.
I mean, I guess so. The biggest thing is it depends on what you're trying to do. A lot of these blockchain services are trying to provide a very singular function that people can use. So yeah, like there may be an element where you use this cloud like blockchain or whatever, but I don't think it's going to replace like current cloud infrastructure. Actually, what you may end up seeing is cloud infrastructure start adopting these. So people just hosting their nodes in these things and start doing all. And they already
Yeah,
sort of do this now. Algorand does this with AWS. Corda
yeah,
does this with
Algorand.
AWS.
Yep.
Yeah. So
So what about this? Like basically their selling point is this. Like let's say I'm an actual developer who knows what he does, but I'm not. But I say I am, and I want to like start like my own thing, and I have have scalability issues. I just go to this blockchain cloud computing. They promise me that I won't have any problems with scalability because I can use as much power as I want as I go. I mean, that's the whole thing, where I can create my app and my scalability is not even limited. It's that's the whole selling point, is where they can create
Well,
the apps for
the,
it. And
the scalability is limited by the total amount of nodes on the network. A lot of
yeah,
these networks aren't that big. I can spin up an AWS server. Don't get me wrong, it's going to cost me a lot of money, and spin up like 20,000 servers if I wanted to, and it would outpace any. I mean, I don't know how many nodes are on all these different networks, but a lot of these networks don't have like insane like resources. Most of these resources are being provided by other people that are participating on the network. I only say that because, well, when people talk about like AWS and providing that infrastructure, typically you're building some sort of application and then scaling that application in different regions. And the biggest thing is making sure that you have the infrastructure that's verbose enough to handle that. I don't think crypto networks have proven that. I think people actually are actually more hesitant because of the scalability of crypto networks.
well, right now it's I guess the whole thing is that it's cheaper to use a blockchain cloud computing than AWS. I've seen prices where it's like $2 versus 10.
It's not. It's not.
It's not.
I use AWS every day and I use crypto. It's not. The real benefit is the autonomous application and the fact that it's self-hosted. But it's not the biggest thing is because when I say self-hosted, I don't have to manage like a set of resources to make sure it maintains itself. But like if I wanted to build a serverless application in the cloud, I for sure can make it cheaper than the blockchain. But the thing I can't do is if I want people to use that service I built in the cloud, I would have to build out a set of APIs for people to access that service. That app on the blockchain can automatically be interacted with any application or anybody on chain. So that's the real benefit, not just, oh, it's cheaper. It's not. It can be in certain instances, it can be depending on what you're trying to do and how you lay your logic out and all of this stuff. But there are a lot of other ways to build applications than just hosting a server. You could host it serverless. You could do all the different things that actually make it a bit cheaper. But it's not the cheaper that makes it valuable. Actually, for me, the most valuable point is that it's self-hosted and third-party people can interact with it without having me having to host the resources to do it, and without having me have to manage the API for people to hook up to it. I can just launch a smart contract, and 1,000 people can interact with it, or 1,000 different entities can interact with
Right.
it without me having to go through like that all that. That's the benefit. Now you may go, okay, well, why don't you do that? Well, there are other benefits of like actual because they have to use crypto, they have to do all that. There are benefits on both sides, but it's not just because it's cheaper.
Right, I understand. I understand. Okay, but don't you see that that's where it's? I mean, I guess the whole selling point is always decentralized, right? That's what people want. But then AWS is centralized. If AWS decides to like let's say get rid of Ethereum from using AWS or whatever, they can control that, right? It's centralized. But if it's decentralized, no one can stop it, right? No one can stop the cloud computing if it's decentralized.
So what you just described, it sounds like a good deal to you, but it also sounds like a liability to someone who ran an application. Like, yeah, sure, it sounds great. No one can stop it. Cool. Okay, what if you need to stop it?
If I need to stop it,
Yeah, like
but
I'm
don't you
sorry, like
stop the
that's right. If you're a
application?
business,
Stop the
let's say someone,
application.
no. You just said no one can stop it. So let's say freaking the government comes up and says you're not allowed to do that. Stop that. Like they did to the Tornado Cash guy. Like they did to the Tornado Cash guy. They pulled him up and said, hey, look, you created this application. People are using it. These third party people are using it for illegal goods. We're going after you. You can't just stop it. So what do you do if you need to stop? Like what do you do? What if you're a business and you're you're liable for that? What if you're liable for anything that application did? What if you can't stop it? That's my point. Like.
Yeah, you stop, but you can't just stop the application, the DApp. You can control the DApp, but you can't control where it's on.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
Okay, whatever, dude.